Where's the boss? Where's the real football expert? And you're not wearing purple. This whole appearance doesn't count. You're muted, mate.
No, I'm not.
No, we're not. We are already live on Facebook. I have to do my very, very boring sharing bits. We're going to do that right now. That takes a while. So for anybody who might be on, it doesn't appear as if anyone is there, but for anybody who might be watching, it's sharing time. It's the exciting pre-show portion of the program where Jeff shares the program to all sorts of places.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm exactly an expert, but played a bit.
I have you. You're officially listed as an expert, so
I guess I am then.
I think I've listed you as. I even use the proper terminology for all the folks who don't get it. Former professional footballer.
Oh, well, if only I would have ever gotten a contract, I would have been truly professional.
You know what? I know it's different in this. That's actually one of the things I was hoping to talk about is the Americanization, fit in a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Trades and a draft and no promotion relegation. Like, stop it. There's a reason why it's a global sport, isn't it?
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a reason why it's the and one of my favorite stats of all when it comes time for it is how the Super Bowl, the biggest sporting event on the planet.
Oh, I know.
Because 200 million people watch it. Do you know how many people watch the Premier League on average on a weekend?
Oh,
about 3.5 billion people. Do you know how many people watched the last World Cup final? About 4.8 billion people. The Champions League final was somewhere in the 4 billion range.
Oh, wow.
Stop talking to me about the
Super
Bowl already, would you? I mean, I almost swore I almost broke my own rule. I almost dropped an F-bomb on my own program. I never do that. It's hooliganism, I swear.
Yeah, right. It just runs through.
I'm surprised you're even awake.
I'll tell you what, man. I don't know what I'm running on right now. I really don't. I mean, I slept okay. Once we got home and unpacked and all that stuff, it was probably, 2 a.m. when I finally laid down, and I was out like a light. And then, of course, the dogs and the child, made sure that wasn't happening past like 7:30 this morning. So
is it the sheer excitement of being part of the Kennedy effect? I would think.
I think it must be.
The adrenaline,
I don't know what else it could be.
It's the adrenaline. It has to be. It's a sheer excitement.
Yeah.
I told Kristen, actually, if I have time, I'm going to start that other computer. I told Kristen, if you see Ashley, I said, I expect you to come upstairs and get in that spot.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't know if Ashley's going to stick her head in or not. She might.
That would be comedy gold.
Yeah, I know, right?
What are your thoughts, Ashley, about Ronaldo returning to United? We think we should be united as a people.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely should be united. Agreed.
Yeah, we all just get along.
Yeah, right?
Right, I agree. I completely agree. Oh, that's funny. Actually, I should do this too.
So speaking of that, I chose a particular background for us this evening. You'll see behind me a bunch of Ashley's works about the office here that we call our home. I figured it was a good opportunity to showcase some of her artistic
yeah.
ability.
Absolutely. Mention it along the way. Mention it somewhere along the way.
Because before that, it was just black walls, which is okay too.
Why not? Why not purple? That's what I want to know.
Well, that was discussed. Actually, the bathroom, the first time that I did it downstairs was purple. It was a real deep, like Ravens purple, kind of.
Okay.
It was nice. It was nice, but I ended up having to redo it anyway. So we changed our color scheme in the midst.
Okay, there we go. 10 to top. We're getting there. We're getting there, I swear. Share. We already have 12 shares. Share to page. It's about to be 14. I'm a little behind. Thank you for having headphones. My goodness.
That's another thing. I can't guarantee that you won't get a glimpse of a child or a dog or something.
But you know what?
God only knows.
I say this all the time, and I do genuinely mean it. That doesn't bother me in the least. We have been living in this Zoom world for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just, you're in your own home. What do you think is going to happen?
Right.
Somebody, especially younger kids, somebody's going to fall and bump themselves, or somebody's going to, wander in, not necessarily knowing what you're up to, or just flat out not caring.
Right.
I mean, the dog doesn't care. That doesn't bother me at all, not even a little. Getting there. 5 o'clock. I gotta hurry up.
You're about to make it just on time.
I usually do a 5:01. Oops, I need to do that group. Whoopsie. Do that group. Yikes, they won't be happy.
Well, I mean, the good news is that you only have to share it to 250 different places. So.
I am routinely over. I'll tell you in just a second. Refresh. 86 this week.
86. Wow.
Yep.
That's a good number.
86 this week. Turn the volume down. And hey, 5 people in the room. That was the pre-show. Here we go. Let's do a live show, shall we? And crud. You disappeared. Okay, here we go. And 3, 2, 1.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man who's wrecked record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, on this planet Earth, the only one we have, third rock from the sun, in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live for the 29th of August, 2021. One of the remarkable things about doing this program with you, because I do not do it for you, it almost sounds like a kind of an arrogance to me. But that said, I do this program with you, is that every time I open this program and give you the date that we are on, the way time flies is absolutely astonishing to me. I had a friend tell me a very long time ago that the older you get, every day is Monday. And it sure feels that way. So welcome all of you. We're doing something a little different this week. I know I say that a lot, but we are doing something different this week because we try to mix it up. We try to do different things. We try to mix it up. We try to hit you from a lot of different angles. We try to take a lot of different approaches for different things. And so we're doing that again this week. If you've seen the show announcements, you will know that I put in the show announcement that we are going to, the phone line is already there and open and waiting for you. You can ring us on any topic that we normally cover here on the program: politics, environment, education, economy, taxes, minimum wage, the post office, unions, anything that we normally cover here on the program. And if you don't, and it almost makes it sound like some kind of punishment, which it certainly is not. But if you don't, we are going to talk football. I've warned you about this now for about 3 weeks or so since my guest confirmed that he would arrive. We're going to talk football, not American football. You've noticed I've said not American football. World football, global football, the proper football, the football you play with your feet, hence why the English dubbed it football, because you kick it. Not throw ball that we play here in the United States, where we tend to throw it and fall down and have about 7 minutes of action in a 60-minute game, or 7 minutes of action in a 3.5 hour television program, which is really about more accurately in it. But, and look, I watch it occasionally too, but I don't watch it the way I used to. I got to be blunt about that. But we're going to talk football. So why am I doing this with a what has been built and billed, as a progressive political talk program, drenched in history and statistics and science and so on? Because I think sometimes every now and then we just need to step back. and just do something a little different and just kind of take a deep breath. We've had a couple Sunday fun days on this program where we had literally no topic whatsoever. We just had a round table, and whatever conversation grew, that's the conversation we had. So we've done that. And we haven't really done anything in the sports, or as the much better half of my guest had said, the sporting stuff. We haven't done any of that. So why not do it? Why not do some sporty stuff? Boys running around getting sweaty. Why don't we do that? And so I thought, why not? Why not do something just a little bit different? And again, this weekend, this 29th of August, as this weekend comes to a close, is the final weekend before Labor Day, the unofficial end of summer. We will not be with you next week. We generally do not do programs on holidays. We will not be with you next week. So again, thought the timing just felt pretty good to do something properly different. Now, again, let me be clear. We will take your phone calls on anything that you would like to talk about that we normally talk about on the program. I actually am planning a program further on about, a little bit of ancient aliens and funds like that. That'll be a fun program. We might do that closer to Halloween. But anything that we normally cover on the program, again, politics, history, science, environment, education, taxes, economy, obviously the happenings in Afghanistan have been quite the topic the last really 2 weeks, especially with the 31st approaching rapidly. We will take your phone calls on any of those things. My guest is not just a football expert, but dabbles in a little bit of politics as well. So we can cover anything that you might want to bring up. We always welcome your phone calls on this program, especially today. It is wide open. Throw it out there. If you want to chat with us, please do so. The number, if you are on Facebook, the number is already on the screen. For our radio listeners, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. For any of you, for all of you, everywhere that you might be across the Facebook universe, thank you. Thank every single one of you for being there. We appreciate you. We could not be here if you are not there. You can watch the program wherever you are watching it right now in any one of the just shy this week of 90 different places that we share the program across the Facebook universe. A couple of groups I actually did not share to this week because this is not exactly in their wheelhouse. So I did not crowd their group with a football program, but what the heck. 86 shares so far this weekend, and that will grow as it goes on. But anywhere that you are watching, stay right where you are. Enjoy, relax, listen, be a part of the program. However, if you would like to converse with us, be a part live of the program and enter your comments, go to the home group Facebook page for the program. That other side of information, you will see the program right in the timeline of the group. Tap on it, expand it, you'll see the comments, and you can join us there. Give us your questions, your comments, your complaints, yell, scream, agree, disagree, show suggestions, guest suggestions, whatever it is that you want to contribute, you can do it right there. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at hot101.net, thank you for welcoming us yet again onto your desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetoothing in your car, or now, of course, your smart speakers. You can tell your Alexa device to play hot101.net, and you will enjoy everything that comes through the great hot101.net, the originator of global internet radio, and we are proud to be a part of it. We have listeners through Hot 101 literally around the globe, and we are humbled by that and grateful for every single one of you. If you do not know how to listen to hot101.net, it is very, very simple. The web address is our name. It's hot101.net. If you have an Apple device, you can go to the Apple App Store and get the app for hot101.net. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and get the app for hot101.net. If you should happen to have the TuneIn Radio app, which works on every device that I am aware of, you can go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net. You will find us and you can listen to us there. And as I mentioned, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. Our new partnership and friendship grows and grows stronger each week with TCP, the Cultured Professional, based in Lancaster. Our friends, the Luptons, Marquise and Whitney, and Taekwon and Sarge, we thank you for being here, and all associated with TCP. We're proud to be part of your family as well, and bring our humble little program to your audience and share your programs with ours. So again, a different little program this week. If you miss any of the program, and why would you ever do such a thing? But if you do, you can always go to our YouTube channel. That Other Side of Information, youtube.com/That Other Side of Information. You will find the recording for this program, for last week and the week before, and all of the programs that we have ever done here at the Kennedy Effect can be found on our YouTube channel. And forgive me, I'm having, you're going to hear me sniffle probably a bit through the program because my allergies are all over the place today. It has also been a very painful weekend. Hips, legs, neck, migraine. It's been a hell of a weekend, kids. Now, I didn't drive 37 hours like my guest, but I feel like it. So you might hear me sniffle a little bit, and you're hearing me swallow a bit because I'm trying to catch some air because my nose isn't exactly working correctly. So there's all that. It's going to be a fun show. It's going to be an interesting show. Could be short. Everything could go to pot, and we could be out of here in another few minutes, or we could carry deep into the evening. We will see how it goes. However, at 5:15, let me get to my guest. I tell you very, very often, folks at home that we're around the world, that I'm very, very fortunate to have a large circle of friends that I can tap to be part of the program. And I'm actually quite particular about who comes in the program. Not everybody on the planet can come on it. And I'm very, very lucky to have a large circle of friends that I can welcome to be part of this program. So we are doing that exactly right now and welcoming yet another pre-existing friend. It's kind of like a pre-existing condition, so to speak, one that he cannot be treated for. Sadly, insurance won't cover it. But my friend and former professional football player, because I'm using it. You're in camp. You're a pro to me. Ryan Shea. Ryan, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
And you mentioned in the pre-show that it might be a little busy, and you are correct. It looks like a mall over there.
Yes.
You got folks shop. Are you giving away money, or people shopping, or what is that?
Well, we typically just have, anybody and everybody coming through the house all the time. So
I've already seen the dog. That was brilliant.
Yes, we have 3 dogs in the house, our 4 children, and whoever extra children show up at the time.
I saw the real football expert float through a couple of times. I think I've seen
over here.
2 of the kids, and I saw the dog. So brilliant. I love it.
We're halfway there already.
As long as we get everybody,
we'll just get
everybody gets a turn.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody gets a turn.
That's right.
So Ryan, who is Ryan Shea, and how did you get here?
Basically, I'm very, very humbled by the fact that you consider me a professional. However, I never took a contract, so I'm not exactly a professional, but the experiences that I had at a very, very young age were life-changing, and definitely very, very fortunate for those, without a doubt. As far as me as a person, I grew up in New York State, around the Horseheads area, Horseheads, Elmira area, and moved to central Pennsylvania when I was 15. I now have my lovely wife, who I've known for 21 years now, our 4 children, 3 dogs, a house in a little quiet town here, and I work for an insurance company. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
What about the football history? This is something that even as the sport has exploded in this country, and it has, there's no denying it. I know that it's a bit of a running
Finally.
joke. It's a bit of a running joke, especially on sports radio, that that football is going to become, or soccer is going to become, the preeminent sport in the country, and they always kind of make a dismissive joke about, and we're still waiting for that, and so on and so on. But what about your own football history? I mean, as an American children, obviously, well, not obviously, I shouldn't say that, but generally speaking, usually take part in a lot of different sports, and the primary sports of those being the traditional American sports: baseball, football, basketball, baseball, American football, basketball, and even hockey. Even though we now see there are more youth who sign up to play world football than play American football at this point, and although more than play baseball as well, to be honest. What about your own path from not, probably playing a myriad of sports when you were younger, although you're still younger because everybody in the world is younger than me, but probably playing quite a number of sports when you were a youth, into how did we end up at world football?
Well, I started playing football at the age of 4. My dad was actually my first coach and got me into the sport. He was my coach up through my grade school years, probably 11 or so. My dad was my coach. So I played kind of like AYSO is in Pennsylvania. The CVSA was the local association for soccer, when I was a kid. And we had 15, 16, kids on our team. Most teams were about that size then. And, a bunch of us just kind of grew up together in it. And, we did play other sports. However, I just found a passion for soccer at a very young age and stuck with it up through my teenage years. So we did the SV or CVSA thing for a long time. There were a couple of travel teams that started happening back in the early 90s in New York. The Elmira Crunch, we had 2 of those, and I played for the Crunch A team for a couple of years. And then I would have to say that probably the glory of us footballers would have been 1994, when the World Cup happened. That's when a lot of people became more interested in it, I suppose. And, as you know, MLS started back in, late 94, and then their first season, of course, in 96. But that being said, there were a couple of us that had the opportunity to try out and play with the New York Metro Stars back when they first started out in October of 94 was
when they were the Metro Stars.
Well, yes,
Which they were to start off. Yeah.
Yes, when they were to start off. For those of you that don't know, they turned into the New York Red Bulls, who you see now.
I still go by the European and do Red Bull New York.
Yes.
Because it was Red Bull New York. It was Red Bull Salzburg. It's Red Bull Leipzig. I do it backward. I still do Red Bull New York.
Yeah.
Because they own, and folks, it is when we say Red Bulls, we mean Red Bull. We mean the actual energy drink. They own a series of football clubs around well, those are the 3 that I know of, but I do think there's more than that, if I'm not mistaken. I'm really taxing my memory. I really do think there's more than that, but those are the 3 biggies: Red Bull New York of the MLS, Red Bull Salzburg of the Swiss. No, that's the wrong country. Salzburg. Why do I have the wrong country? I'm blowing. My mind just shut down. My mind shut down mid-sentence. Red Bull Salzburg and Red Bull Leipzig of the German Bundesliga, who now has an American manager, by the way.
Mhm.
So the Metro Stars being the original incarnation of Red Bull New
Yes.
York.
Yes. And that was like I said, I never had the opportunity to take a contract with them or anything like that. It was in very, very early stages of what they were putting together. And then the nice thing about it, though, that was amazing for me was being able to, at 14 years old, 15 years old, you know, literally stare at these people in the faces and drill with them on the field. And the highlight of my life, of course, was being able to take a shot on Tony Meola, which I never would have been able to score on that man. However, one of those things that just kind of sticks with you forever. Unfortunately, my tenure was cut short. I think that I probably could have had maybe a future in that, but cut short due to injury. And then we moved, and I played a little bit after that in some local area teams here in Pennsylvania, and just couldn't play competitively anymore. So unfortunately, I went from that to coaching instead. So I coached for a number of years, some younger kids, and I like bringing the younger ones up through. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much my experience as far as that goes.
So my football story goes back to 2002, the World Cup in 2002, when the United States men made it to the quarterfinals and played Germany in that quarterfinal and beat them roundly about the pitch, except for about the 30 seconds or so that Michael Ballack picked off a pass and scored.
Yeah.
And of course, they lost that 1-0. And I still remember distinctly the press conference. That 2002 was the World Cup co-hosted by, I believe, South Korea and Japan. So the matches were in the middle of the night. But I distinctly remember the press conference by the German club, Michael Ballack, who was their captain at the time, coming out, and the press just sort of lauding over another German triumph and so on and so on, and Ballack going, "Poof, we lost. We got beat. We got beat all over the pitch, and they're better than us." And that was nothing short of a miracle. And we didn't deserve that. They deserved better than that. And they were the better team for 95 minutes and 30 seconds. And that other 30 seconds is when we scored. And other than that, they killed us. And I can remember late in that match, the Americans, especially Brian McBride, running a full tilt. Didn't even appear to be winded or tired. And the Germans were dragging themselves around the pitch. They were wiped. And I remember Ballack saying in the press conference after that they're still running. I think they're still running. And we're just, and I can only imagine what that would have done. American sports fans, especially if it's not a sport that you're tuned into, are real front runners. We just are. We only pay attention to the Olympics when we think we're going to win.
Right.
We like to make sure that we're the ones that got the most gold medals. And I think if that American team had made it to the semifinals, they may have just then gotten a hold of it. And maybe that might have been an extra push. But so then a month, I think, or so after that, I happened to see a recorded match. I did not know it was recorded at the time, on the Yes Network of Manchester United, and thinking, well, I know him, and 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 I know him. Because at that point, United had a marketing agreement with the Yankees. So they were on the Yes Network. And I thought, that's it, done, I'm hooked. And that, done. I'm done. It is my favorite sport above all. I will watch it. And I think the interesting thing, although I think I might be, in quite a minority here, it's destroyed American football for me. I find American football very, very difficult to watch now because there's just so many stops and starts and commercials and what you watch football match. It starts and it goes and it doesn't stop till the half and then it doesn't stop again until it's over and that's it. It's a tidy 2 hours. Unless you're in a a tournament where they're playing extra time. But I mean, generally speaking, it's a tidy 2 hours. So, which is kind of part why I don't understand why American TV hasn't taken on more to it. But that said, and I've been hooked ever since, and I can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of it. I love the internationals. I follow the men's national team religiously. I follow the women's national team religiously. You want Winners America? There you go. The single I didn't mute my own phone. The single most substantive, victorious, successful international anything in this other than probably men's and women's basketball, easily the most successful international squad that the United States puts out on a regular basis is the women's national football team. And I've been absolutely hooked in it. It was a quiet celebration around here when the Premier League kicked off a couple weeks ago. And, for those of you who do not know, all of the terminology I am tossing about, we will get into that. We'll describe it to you and we'll try to break it down for you and tell you what exactly we're talking about. Because it is different. And if you don't watch it, you don't know, and that's okay. Learning's a wonderful thing. We do a lot of learning here. But I think one of the great things about football, Ryan, that's different is you mentioned a passion for it. Lots of different people have different passions for all different sports. I mean, some people are passionate about curling, and God bless them, and God bless them for it. But there is something fundamentally different about football. It is, I know you can't do this across Europe, but if I walk down the street with this jersey on and a Liverpool supporter walks past me, we can still have a smile and have a go at each other, have a little bit of ribbing. Spurs supporter, the world's second favorite team, Spurs. It's which is a football joke, everybody's second favorite team, Spurs. Nobody loves Spurs, but yeah, they're all right. Okay. And then I don't mind them. And then you can have a good ribbing at somebody, and it doesn't turn into sometimes the craziness that we see in Europe, but there seems to be an automatic connection there.
Right.
That doesn't happen with other American sports. If I walk down the street in a Yankee jersey and a Red Sox fan walks past me in his jersey, we're much more likely to kick off than we are have a chat.
Yeah.
But even
you don't have anything in your hand.
Even a Liverpool supporter or a City supporter, we're probably more likely to grab a pint, and really have a nitpick at each other than we are to come to blows. And I think football also is passed down through families way more than American sports. Way more than American sports. If your great grandfather was a United supporter, you are too. In all likelihood, you are too. It's just, and you don't have a choice, probably, by the way. You're raised that way. It's just, that's how it is. You find in your life, as somebody who found a passion for it by playing it, not by entering it late in life as I have, but by playing it from when you were that big. I mean, there's a different level of, there's a different commitment to it as a supporter, as a fan, as we would call it. There's just a different depth of passion and commitment and just fever of it than other American sports. Is that something would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. An example of that would be one of the CVSA teams that I played for after I played for my dad. I played for a team called Hilliard Corporation. And our coach, his name was Juan Parra, and he actually played for the Spanish national team years and years and years ago. It was in the 80s, 70s and 80s, I believe it was. And, his son, John, was on our team and, on down the line. And those guys, I still connect with them once in a while on Facebook, John and his dad. And, they're still running around with the Man U jerseys and the stuff in the background and all those things. It's part of them. It's part of their family. It never leaves. It just doesn't leave. It's one of those things that stays with you forever, which a lot of commercialized sports these days. You play, it's over, it's done. That's the biggest difference that I see. I'm glad now that finally, because when I was a kid, when I was younger, it wasn't very popular. I mean, there was one of, like I said, 16 kids that were on our team. There were maybe 15, 16 teams in the league, but it wasn't, you went to school and, oh, you play on the soccer team? Yeah. Oh, who plays on the soccer team?
That's different.
We have a soccer team, one of those. And luckily, I'm glad finally, a generation later, it's more to the forefront than it definitely was when I was a kid. So we're working up to it. But yeah, you're definitely right. It's ingrained in you, whether you start playing when you're a child or whether you start watching when you're an adult, there's something about it that captivates you, and there you are.
And look, in a nation of 330 million people, there are no absolutes. I mean, let's be blunt, but I don't see, it didn't happen to me as a kid. And just because it didn't happen to me doesn't mean it's not happening to other kids, but I don't think at 3, 4, and 5, 6, 10, you are bleeding for your NFL franchise the way
Right.
you do for this. There's something almost indescribable. There's a depth to it. I mean, people have watched me watch football and they don't get it. I mean, every pass and every missed pass and every one of the, certainly in recent seasons, every one of the 400,000 times United turns the bloody ball over, I just roll my eyes and I just, what, or when someone misses a sitter, or just like, what are we doing here? And is there any, have you been able to pass that down to the kids, or are they not? Do they enjoy it, but at that pain, that burn?
Oh, like the, oh, Dad, you're watching it again.
Yeah.
No,
exactly. Oh no, Dad, it's not so bad that they lost. They're going to play again in 3 days. It's not the point, is it?
That's not the point. It's
No.
not the point. No,
Right.
there's no, oh, it'll be okay. Be all right on Wednesday.
No, it's not going to be okay,
It's
is
not
it?
okay. It's
No.
not okay. It's not okay.
Have they
It's
picked up that depth of passion that you have, or that I have?
I don't think that they particularly have for the sport per se. My son enjoys playing, our oldest son.
Well, what are you doing wrong?
Dylan. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that I had an opening came up at our local high school for the coach position. And it was the year that we moved here, and it happens to be the high school that I graduated from. And I kick myself all the time for not applying for that position, and Ashley will tell you the same thing. You know, she told me you need to apply for that. You need to apply for that. I never did, but anyway, I think that had I have done that, or in the last 5 or 6 years been able to get back into coaching again, that they probably would have more of a stronghold on it. But soon.
I was going to say, I mean, it's never too late. I'm sure whoever the manager is there now isn't going to be there for the rest of, his or her life. I mean, I'm sure the opening will come up again. 5:37 Eastern time here on the Kennedy Effect. We are live. It is the 29th, he tried to say. I was going to give you the time again, but I just did that about 15 seconds ago, so let me skip over that. It's the 29th of August, and we are live. It is 5:38 p.m. A very different sort of program this weekend. Now, listen, the phone line is open, and it's been open from Jump Street. You can call us on any topic that we normally cover here on the program. Yes, Ryan and I are primarily discussing football because we are taking a bit of a step back, a little deep breath, a little decompression as we head into the final weekend and approaching the unofficial end of summer, as Labor Day tends to be. Schools will be back in session this week. The fall campaign cycles in any state, municipality, county where odd year elections are occurring are going to kick into full gear. So as I see, you can tell me about that in a minute. As we can, it's going to ramp up and get a little bit serious. Lives get a little bit back to a grind, shall we say, after Labor Day, and of course we can't wear white anymore, so that happens too. So we did you like that one? I remember that one. So we decided just to take a little bit of a decompression for this week. Now, again, let me be clear, we will take your phone calls on any topic that we normally cover here on the program, from the dreadfully deeply serious like race relations and COVID and Afghanistan, to anything in politics, education, history, science, environment. If you've been paying attention to the home group Facebook page for this program, that other side of information, there's been a plethora of, usually the two words go together, a veritable plethora of environmental articles that I have been posting, because the environmental crisis is real. It is existential. It is happening. Half the globe is on fire, and the other half are experiencing storms and floods. If you were watching the Weather Channel at all today, as I was, a hurricane that went from Category 1 right around this time, a little bit earlier, right around lunch-ish time yesterday, developed into a category, only about 8 miles an hour sustained winds, under a Category 5 in one day. Because the water of the Gulf of Mexico is about like bathwater. It's so warm that this storm sucked it all up and intensified fivefold in one day, and is now lashing Louisiana. We can talk about that. The budget, the $3.5 trillion Democratic budget, the infrastructure plan, the increase in COVID. Look, we will take your calls on anything that this program normally covers. Should you choose not to do so, you will suffer through football talk. I'm not. I don't mean you're not going to suffer. It's going to be fun. You can learn something. So that was my goal for the program for this week. We're happy to discuss anything that you want to call and talk to us about that, isn't within the normal purview of the program. If not, we're just going to relax a little bit, try and step back, take a deep breath, lower our shoulders a little bit, and talk about something fun. Wherever you might be on the Facebook universe, about 90 places, just a bit shy of 90 places that we shared this week. Stay right there. Enjoy. We are just happy that you are here. There would be no program without you. That said, if you wish to take part in the program, send us a comment, send us a question, agree, disagree, yell, scream, show suggestions, guest suggestions, endorsement suggestions. Please feel free to come over to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. That Other Side of Information. Open up the comments and please join us. Our sisters and brothers at hot101.net, thank you again for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We appreciate it. Again, our radio listeners are no different, no better, no worse. They are all part of the Kennedy Effect family. We would not have a program if you were not listening. We know that we have listeners in Australia, New Zealand, dotted throughout the Western European continent, in South America, in Central America, and in Canada. And we thank every single one of you, especially this week. You'll probably listen and think to yourself, look at these two Americans talking about our sport. What do they know? Well, we just might shock you about what we know. So hang in there. Or if it doesn't cost you anything to make an international phone call, then give us a ring and educate us. We'll take it. I think we're big kids. We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it. I have no doubt that after the show is over, Ryan's wife, the boss, Ashley, is going to go. You don't know nothing about football, you two. Nothing. Let me tell you about football. So
I've been trying to get her in here, but she's...
And let me start with the most important part of football, purple. So that said, if you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, it is really, really simple. Our name is our web address. You can go to the main website, hot101.net, Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, Google Play Store if you have an Android device, and you will find the apps for hot101.net. And if you have the TuneIn Radio app, which works on every device that I'm aware of, Google Pixels and LGs and all that fun stuff, you can go right to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you will find us. And not just us, but you will find all of the great DJs and music and shows that happen on hot101.net 24/7. To our new family, I'd still say new, we're only a couple months in, but our new family at TCP, the Culture Professional, thank you for being here. And thank you for allowing us into your homes yet again. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. The phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. If you miss any of the program, and shame on you if you should, if you miss any of the program, you can always go to our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information, as well, youtube.com/That Other Side of Information, and you can watch our entire history, every recorded episode, our repository, our library of the Kennedy Effect can be found there. We are also on, he tried to say, we are also on Instagram, That Other Side of Information. See me peeking over to my cheat sheet? We're so many places I can't even remember them all. Where I did a TikTok today. Yeah, I forgot last week. But I did a TikTok. You can find me there on TikTok. Also, That Other Side of Information. If you want to be a subscriber and monetary supporter of the program, you can go to patreon.com and help us out there. Unlike a lot of other places that ask you for monetary support, we're literally talking $1, $3, $5 a month. And every single dime that comes in through Patreon goes back into the program. It buys equipment like the computer I'm speaking to you through right now, the other one here, that one there, that board there, that really fancy board that I still can't get working. That's what we do with it. And of course, you can tweet me, which only one person in the history of the program has done. You can tweet us. We are there. I have the Twitter page open. It is at That Kennedy Talk, at That Kennedy Talk, or twitter.com/That Other Side of Information. I think that covers it. I wanted to ask you about I think one of the things that's different about football in this country is Major League Baseball doesn't have really an international competitor, shall we say. We know there's a professional league in Mexico. There's one in Korea. There's one in Japan. There are actually several developing throughout Europe. But we know that the preeminent league on the planet is Major League Baseball, and by a long way. I would venture to say by a long distance. American football, the same thing. There's a league in Mexico. There's actually a league in the Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken. We saw NFL Europe, and there are still some Europeans who play the game. I think the Germans actually have a professional league, if I'm not mistaken. But we know that the preeminent league on the planet is here in the United States. Hockey is a global game. It's quite a global game, which is, really quite astonishing for a game, created in the backyard frozen ponds of Canada. It is played proficiently and throughout Europe and Russia, the Scandinavian countries, etc. But it tends to still be that the preeminent league is the NHL here in the United States and Canada. And obviously the NBA, I think, far eclipses any other league on the planet. One of the differences between Major League Soccer is that it is even 25, I think, years in, it is a fledgling league.
Mhm.
Manchester United goes back to 1872.
Yeah.
Some of the clubs go back to the 1840s, when the English developed/invented the game. Do you think that is partly what keeps, as rapidly and as exponentially as the game is growing, do you think that's partly what keeps it from growing even more, is the knowledge that we're not the best at this? We are another league in a global game, and all the best players play over there, and I have to wake up in ungodly times of the morning to watch it. And not to mention it's better football, but that's, probably more my opinion than yours. But do you think do you think that American sort of like, it's not our game, is a little bit holding it back, even as much as it's grown? And we know that it has.
I think so. I think actually you touched on something pretty big there, because like you said, we have the MLS, and the MLS in our country is the premier soccer league, in our country, if you will. But then you've got Liga, you've got Premier, you've got all of these other European and even Asian leagues around the world, that, whereas I'm trying to make a correlation here, like with American football, you have the NFL, and you don't typically see one of our American football teams playing a Russian football team. It doesn't happen. Whereas
you don't go see the Yankees playing a baseball team from Korea or Japan. You don't see,
right. And
you don't see the New York Knicks just go play, ironically, you'll know this, Real Madrid.
Right.
Because Real Madrid is a sporting company. They're not just a football team. They're obviously, the football team is the anchor of that, but Real Madrid also has a basketball team. So you don't just see the Lakers fly over and play Real Madrid, or they here, Barcelona actually has a football, God almighty, a basketball team as well. You don't see the Rangers fly off to play a Finnish or Swedish professional team. Yeah, we don't see that. So there's a massive international component to football that is not there in the traditional big four American sports.
Right. And especially when the Olympics come around, you've got teams, or rather players from teams all over the world, that go and represent their home country. Some of those players play in the States. They play for MLS, they play for, Arsenal and Man U and, all of the others. So it's, like you say, it's certainly one of the very, very few now almost commercialized international sports on the planet. I mean, you've got people from all over the world.
Isn't that a very different thing too? That the very best American baseball players play here. The very best American basketball players play here. But if you are a top flight, and we can use I probably knew I was going to go here at some point, our own Commonwealth, our very own from the Commonwealth, from Hershey, Pennsylvania, Christian Pulisic, probably, I don't think it's too much of an argument, probably the single top American player on the planet at the moment. If you're that good, you don't play here. You go to Europe.
Yes.
And that's a fundamental difference between the big four American sports as opposed to football.
Right.
The very best American players, the top shelf, cream of the crop, don't stay here. You go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's part of, again, even with the massive growth of the sport, that one of the things that kind of holds it back is that even some lay people who are familiar with it but not drown in it the way you and I are, like, well, the best players aren't even here.
Mm-hmm.
The what's left is here, which is a rotten way to put it because I don't think it's accurate, but there is an element of the everybody else is here. The best went, they're gone already.
Right.
Do you find that, or do you think that's accurate, or do people tell you such a thing? Or
no, I do think that's accurate. And I think it's mainly because we don't have that premier league in our country. I mean, the MLS is premier to us, but it's not to the rest of the world. And therein lies the whole thing with the NFL. Your best player from South America or wherever comes to play here. Your best player from Sweden, Switzerland, whatever comes to play here. Whereas, like you said, our best players here typically, will play in the MLS for a while, and then they end up going overseas. And I do think that kind of holds it back a little bit because we're not that number one country for that. And we know how us Americans are, as far as that goes.
Well, that's the front runner thing, isn't it?
Right.
That we're not the best at this, so now I'm not going to pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. And it's sad. It's really sad because therein lies so much culture and so much, learning to be had about other people and other places and stuff like that. That's really being missed by it not being more in the limelight, so to speak, than it is.
I think one of the most fascinating things about watching the Premier League on a week in, week out basis is those overhead shots of the pitch. Some of these stadia, as you well know, are literally in the drop dead center of these neighborhoods that have been there for 200 years.
Right.
I actually very much think straight away of a place like Craven Cottage, where Fulham Football Club calls home, Fulham being a section of London. If you took an overhead of Craven Cottage, there are the streets that surround it, but on the other side of those streets are row houses.
Mm-hmm.
It's just dead in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yep.
One of the great controversies that the American owners of Liverpool have been getting flack for is they've bought up all the land around Anfield, and that folks who used to live in those homes were bought out and moved, and they're going to flatten all of it and make a very American style, with a mall and a hotel and restaurants and all. That's not very English. I mean, if you look, there's even the big stadia, Old Trafford, obviously near and dear to my heart. If you watch Old Trafford if you look at Old Trafford from above, the canal, why is it called Old Trafford? Because it's in the Old Trafford section of Manchester. and it's next to the Old Trafford Canal, and the canal runs right next to the stadium. And why can't they expand anymore? Because they're going to run into the canal.
Mhm.
And that, we don't have that.
Mm-mm.
I think the closest thing that we used to have with stuff like that was baseball. Shibe Park in Philadelphia, or Comiskey in Chicago, even the way Wrigley has been changed in Chicago. Why am I blanking? Boston and Fenway, where they've it's become commercialized. Actually, the same owners of the Red Sox, the same owners of Liverpool, but the area around Fenway has now been all bought out, and it's now they've shut the streets, and it's all just a big circus, and it's just all a big, bar after bar after bar after restaurant after a souvenir shop after, that I think the age of the sport, though, is something that we tend to not. I don't know if we grasp it exactly.
No, I mean, people think it's a new thing. It's
because it's new here.
Because it's new here, right? I mean, it's like you said, it's a generation old at this point in our country, and but you look at like you say, Spain, London, Italy, France. They've had football clubs for hundreds of years. This has been going on, and those stadiums that are in the middle of those little towns, that's where that began. That's where the whole thing began. And like you said, it's it's interesting, because when I was driving back from Illinois yesterday, and I took that picture of the stadium in Columbus and sent it to you, that stadium kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
It has a European feel to it.
Yes, because it's I mean, right in the middle of the city. The highway goes right past it. You can see, I mean, all the buildings around it, which may be why they're building another one.
And it's got a I would try to Google it if it didn't look so stupid on camera, but there's a isn't it like the Stockyards or something like that, called the Columbus one? It's got a name. It's got a
I think it is the Stockyards. Yeah,
it's got that, because the one end of the pitch is just that straight up and down, a big screen on it, and there's a couple rows where people can stand, and it does look like somebody gathered up a bunch of leftover stands that a bunch of high schools weren't using and sort of put them in a square. It does look like it was put together with scraps, know.
Yep.
But it's also part of the charm of it.
Right.
Although they are replacing it, but I mean, it is part of the charm of it. And I mean, it's, there's a magic to football that just doesn't, the other sports just don't have. And it doesn't make the other sports bad sports, or that they're not fun to watch, or that they're not enjoyable, or that they don't have their own stories, or that they don't compel you and bring you in a way. But football is singular in its that connection, I think, is truly singular. I don't see it in other sports, even American sports. Obviously some people just, they live and die with every single pitch of a Yankee game or a Phillies game or a Pirates game for the locals, in our area, but not, I mean, Kristen's watched me watch football and just kind of looks at me like there's a, I get kind of a look occasionally, like, what is that? What are you doing? What are you doing? When I'm slapping the chair or screaming or, got a cat on my lap and then someone scores and there they go. There goes the cat because I just jumped. I mean, it's just, there's just something different about it. 6 p.m., 267-227-9189, 1 hour in. We'll see how much longer we go. I think Ryan and I are both exhausted. I don't think either one of us is all here today. It's a very odd program. What can I tell you? I think the weather is a little weird too. It's been so cloudy here for like the last 3 days. I think we're all just a little, and Kristen made a big freaking dinner and it's starting to sit in my stomach. I'm just ready to do it. I'm just ready to do a high school exam thing straight into the mic and all straight into the mic. We will take your phone calls on any topic that we normally cover here on the program. We will take your phone calls on any topic, political, environment, etc., etc., etc. If you should not do that, we're going to keep talking about football again, just to try to maybe key things down a little bit, try to relax, to take a little step back from the seriousness before, for us political folks, before the real season, serious season kicks in, and before the kids return back to school, and so on and so on and so on. And by the way, if you're a parent, as Ryan is, as I am not, if you are a teacher, if you're an administrator, anyone related in the education area, the world of education, and you're listening and you want to tell us about what's coming up in your district as far as masks, vaccinations, lower class sizes, distancing, et cetera, let us know. We'd like to hear about it. We want to know what you're facing coming up this week. I believe all of the schools in Pennsylvania will be back in this week. I think it's on Tuesday, actually. Let us know. We'd like to hear about it. What are you anxious about? What are you not anxious about? Or do you feel great? You're vaccinated? You feel confident? You think the kids are okay? You think we're doing all the right things? Hey, excellent. We'd like to hear that too. Not just the bad stuff. If you feel good about it, then we'd like to hear that too. But the phone line is open for any and all of you. 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. Anywhere on Facebook, that other side of information is our home group page. You can come there and say hello. I have said hello. There have been no comments, but I have said hello to everybody who has come in so far, and we thank you for being there. Hot101.net is the main web address. Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app. And you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. And of course, our friends and family at TCP, the Culture Professional from Lancaster. You can see us there on their Facebook page and their Roku channel. This face made for radio on your television screens each and every week. We thank you for being part of the program and for being with us, and we continue on. Who is your club? I don't think I even know. I don't think who?
Oh, well,
I don't think I know who your club is. Who is your club?
I'm a Man U fan from
Cool.
childhood.
Good for you.
Of course.
It's an excellent choice, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
As if there is another choice to make.
Yeah.
An excellent choice.
That's that was just kind of that happened from a young age. Like I said, I think that one of my old coaches had a big part in that, because he was just a Man U freak, and that started the whole thing. As far as American,
what's fun? Isn't football the sport? I will say the sport. Well, you can have multiple clubs.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a favorite club in Germany, in Spain, in England, in Scotland, and here in the States. You might support 5 different clubs.
Yep.
Now you have that, you have that gut decision to make if they should ever play each other. If you're a United supporter and they're in the Champions League, and you also fancy watching Juventus every single week, and they meet in the Champions League, you get a decision to make then, don't you? Who you're more a fan of than the other. But we don't do that with American sports, do we? You're a Yankee fan, and you're a Yankee fan. You're a Giants fan, you're a Giants fan, and you're a Giants fan. And that's pretty much it. But isn't that one of the great things about football? Mm-hmm. I'm a United supporter, period, end of story. I will watch Tottenham. I will watch Bayern. I will watch Leipzig if I can get them, because it's getting harder and harder to watch football now. We can get into that too. But isn't that one of the interesting things about football for you? That you can have so many different clubs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not even just clubs, but individual players. I like watching lots of different players from lots of different teams that I don't particularly support their teams, but I like their character as far as a player goes, what have you. But but yeah, it's just definitely different in the sense that, like you said, if you're a Yankees fan, you're not a Red Sox fan. You cannot like them, and vice versa. You cannot. I see that a lot in Pennsylvania. You're a Steelers fan or you're an Eagles fan, and that's it.
And never the twain shall meet.
That's right. I mean, me, I kind of like I like to live outside of the box. So American football, I like the Atlanta Falcons. Why? I don't know. Just because nobody else does, in this area. And same thing with college football. I like the Oregon Ducks. Always have. Don't know why. But
they're Ducks.
yeah, I mean,
who can argue?
That's right. I mean, what's not cool about them? Period. But yeah, it's I've been a Man U fan forever. I do have a soft spot for the Red Bulls, of course. And like I mentioned to you the other day, while I was on my trip, out to the Midwest and back, I got to the hotel and I'm sitting there and it's like, what am I going to do? My mind is still going 90 miles an hour and I can't calm myself down. And I'm flipping through the channels.
Not that you were driving 90.
No, of course not. Of course not. My mind goes a lot faster than I actually do. Typically, but no, I just couldn't relax. So I'm flipping through the channels and I come across Orlando versus Miami. And it's like, thank God, I
found some football.
I found something. So I sat there and watched the whole thing. And it doesn't really matter, what team you like better than the other. It's football. You watch the game. You're part of the game.
Beautiful sport. You
can appreciate it good and bad. So that's definitely a big difference, between the international prowess of our football and American football for sure. Oh, hello. And here's our first small guest of the night.
There we go.
This is Olivia.
Hey, Olivia, how are you? Well, she can't hear me. You have the headphones on.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. How are you, Olivia? Back to dinosaur faces.
Well said. Well said. That's good for the radio audience too, by the way, who has no visual. That's fantastic.
She's not much of a talker. Oh my
I love
goodness.
it. I don't care. I love it because we're doing all this stuff from home. It just happens. It's brilliant. I don't care.
Well, that's what happens in this place. You never know what you're going to see or what's going to walk in the background. So I apologize in advance.
I'm missing the dog. I was looking for the dog.
Yeah, Izzy's around here somewhere, and so
came
is
in
June.
and it was very quick. Came in and burst and kind of just took a sniff and headed right back out again. So.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about, as somebody who tried to become part of the MLS. And again, you got further than I think. The one thing about professional football in the US that is exactly the same as all the other sports is you're talking about, of all the kids that play it, or start out playing it, whether they're 5 or 10 or even get to it later in life, you're talking about 0.001% who ever become professionals. So you do have an attachment to the MLS. We have an attachment to the MLS as Americans to kind of say, hey, that's our league.
This is our league.
Don't crap on our league. It's our league. And we know it's not perfect. God knows. Why do you think? There we go. Look at that.
There's June.
That's funny. Your tongue hanging out. The exasperation. The wiped out face.
Yeah.
Tell me about somebody's had a long day. Boy, I bet she's got a rough life.
Oh, yes, she does. She certainly does.
Why do you think MLS has decided and it made a conscious decision from its inception to try to Americanize football? When players move between clubs, for those unfamiliar, and I might even explain it wrong, and God, please correct me if you think I've done so. Players throughout world football do not get traded. They get sold. and bought, like literally sold and bought. When there's no draft in world football, you don't go to university and then get drafted by your club. There are players in England who have played for Manchester United since they were, I think Marcus Rashford's been there since he's 7 years old. He went to school at Manchester United and played for all of their clubs all the way through. So there's no draft. You don't come out of college and get drafted by Manchester United or Liverpool or Manchester City or Tottenham. You are in their academy. And while you are there training to play football and to hopefully get better at football, they put you to school. You do your schooling at the academy. MLS has a salary cap. There is no salary cap on these big world leagues, especially the big 5 European leagues. Spain has tried to institute some sort of salary cap, but it seems to be quite loose. If you look at the money Real Madrid continues to spend, offering $185 million for a player. But why do you think MLS has done these things just because we're Americans and that's what we're used to? Or do we think we're smarter than the rest of the planet? It seems to me we've taken the world game and tried to Americanize it. And I didn't even get into promotion and relegation, but which doesn't happen in the MLS. You could never win a match and you're still going to be in the MLS next season. In any other league on the planet, you get relegated to a lower division, and then you play smaller teams and you make less money. And that's the whole impetus to stay in the top flight. MLS has removed that. There's no risk reward. If you stink, so what? You're going to be there again next year.
Still there next year.
Right. So why do you think MLS has tried to Americanize football? Do you think is it the only way we can consume it as Americans? Or are we smarter? Or do they think they're smarter? Why do you think MLS is not like these other leagues? I mean, because obviously, because the English FA only goes back to the 1840s. You think they might have a clue what they're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the Americanization of the whole thing is to try to make it more comparable to other sports in our country, and the way that they're financially run. And for some reason, I think somewhere along the line, someone thinks that it makes it more interesting. I don't agree, but I think
Could you imagine the Philadelphia Union, Red Bull New York, NYCFC, Chicago Fire, having, especially actually this year for Red Bull New York, by the way, who are not even in the playoff spot. And actually, we could even talk about playoffs. We don't have playoffs in these other leagues, by the way. The only playoffs you have are to get promoted. You don't have playoffs at the end of the in the Premier League. At the end of 38 matches, whoever has the most points is the champion. Period. End of story. You could have a champion 5 weeks before the end of the final match. You might already know who your champion is, and I suppose that's arguably a weakness of it. But there are no playoffs. Even in a year like this year, where our club is not going to be in the playoffs. They're actually quite dreadful this season. You can't just sell off all your best players and expect to be okay. But but there's no penalty. You don't lose anything. Red Bull New York is going to be part of MLS next year. If they don't win another match the rest of the season, they're going to be part of MLS next year. If they play next year and never win a match, they'll be part of MLS the year after. And the year after, and the year after. Could you imagine Red Bull New York being faced with relegation? To put it in different terms, could you imagine the New York Mets being dropped to the minor leagues because you stunk? You weren't good enough to play in our league. So now we've dropped you to lower competition. and you might be able to work your way back up. Could you imagine the Dallas Cowboys being dropped to a lower league, or the LA Lakers being dropped to the developmental league, let's say, because you stink. You're just terrible. You're not competitive enough, which is really what promotion relegation is all about. Is at the end of these 38 matches, you were dreadful. You're the 3 worst teams. You're done. You're not part of our league anymore. Go down and play down there and see if you can work your way back up. Wouldn't that make it? Aren't the very things that MLS has removed from the game, purchases of players, academies? Well, they do most all MLS teams do have an academy now. They didn't used to. But not having this college draft, you can't trade players, defined transfer windows, promotion relegation, no playoffs. I think actually the only acceptable playoff I would make an exception for, I think MLS is going to expand probably till there's 40 clubs. I think there's 30 now. I think you're going to have 2 conferences of 20 and then let the 2 conference champs play for MLS Cup. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to do that to limit travel personally, by the way, but that's a whole different, we can get into that later. But imagine a Premier League with 40 teams. Can you imagine? But anyway, don't you think that the things that MLS has removed from the sport that has made it the global sport, and by a distance, by a proper distance, aren't those exactly the things that would draw people to it in this country, because it would be fundamentally different? That's always been my contention.
Yeah, and I think that it would, in a sense that, like you said, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, they're all run the same way. Because let's face it, anybody that watches American football knows that had there been that kind of a system in that association, there would really only be like 4 teams. That's it. Because there are teams that have been terrible since before I was born.
Promotion relegation is exactly what develops more teams. Folks, you may not know this. There are literally hundreds of professional football teams in this country, because you have the MLS, you have USL 1, USL 2, USL 3. Most of the MLS clubs have a second tier team, almost like a minor league team, that play in these USL divisions. I think there's 3 divisions of USL. There might even be a 4th. I'm not 100% certain on that. I want to say 3 though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 3.
So you have clubs in places like Charlotte, North Carolina, and Puerto Rico, by the way, and dotted throughout Canada. Places like, it's a really harsh term, I don't have a better one for it, in what you would call these second tier cities. They're not huge cities, like well, actually Nashville's in the MLS now, but I mean, can I think of like a Nebraska, or in Idaho, or in the Dakotas, or Portland, Maine instead of Portland, Oregon, or there are USL teams. There are literally hundreds of professional football teams. And one of the hopes of those professional football teams is, if you're in USL 3, we're going to get to USL 2. And then we're going to get to USL 1. And then we would get to MLS, except MLS doesn't allow it. You can buy your way into MLS if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You could be absolute crap as a club, but if you have the $150 million to pay the entrance fee, you're in. It's unlike any other football structure anywhere on the planet. Isn't, from my money, no pun intended, but from my money, isn't promotion relegation is exactly what expands the sport.
Exactly.
Hope of moving up.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's how you end up with a truly premier league, in the MLS. The MLS would be full of nothing but the best. in every city that they have a club. And then, just like, well, if you compare it to minor league baseball, same thing. Those guys, I have a cousin that went up through the ranks in minor league baseball and ended up pitching, I don't know, a couple games for the Indians, I believe, a few years back, 14, 15, something like that. And I mean, he spent his entire life working his way up, through those different teams, to get there. And so when you do, you have competition, you have the best of competition. Whereas, like you said, you could have a club that won't win a single game, won't win a single match the entire season.
And
And it's okay.
That might be a great analogy for folks that don't quite get, or possibly aren't quite getting what it is that we're talking about, is that think of the minor league baseball player who's working up from single A to double A to triple A and to the majors. We're talking about entire teams doing that now.
Right. And what happened with
USL 3 being your single A to the double A, kind of going inverse in numbers, but and that's why the English Premier League is the Premier League. It is the premier top 20 teams in the country for that given year. And that promotion relegation actually, there's guys that play for their local pub on a Saturday in England who think someday maybe we'll be good enough that we could get paid and do this for a living. That's one of the magics of the sport, isn't it? I want to ask you if you know about this, and I believe that you probably already do know about this. The very first professional football team in the United States was based right here in our own humble Commonwealth, in our own humble Lehigh Valley, in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It was Bethlehem Steel FC. Did you know that?
Actually, I didn't know that.
So in
Bethlehem
Bethlehem Steel FC, I beg you all to go to YouTube and watch, or your PBS on demand, and watch the full length documentary. There's a 25-minute version, and there's a longer, I think, hour and a half version of the story of Bethlehem Steel FC. Bethlehem Steel FC was made up of Eastern European steel workers, Polish, Czech, Ukrainian, etc. And they came to this country to work in the mill, find a new life, live the American dream the way all of us have tried to do. And they brought football with them. And they began to play recreationally. And the owners of the mill found out about it and decided they would sponsor them. So they bought them uniforms, I should say. Well, they're kits to us. They're kits to pros. You're pro like Ryan. It's a kit anyway. So they bought them uniforms, and then they began to play representing Bethlehem Steel. And then they would do like these exhibitions, I guess is probably the best way. And they did clinics and tried to teach folks the football. And it became so popular, and it became such ambassadors for the mill, that the owners of the mill finally said to them, you know what, you don't have to work here anymore. We will pay you. And they began to travel the country and as Bethlehem Steel FC and play anyone who would take them on. University teams, college teams, private clubs, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, I believe Bethlehem Steel FC won the first 3 or 4. Somebody can double check me, or I will try to Google it myself if I'm able. If I can do it without kicking and punching the microphone, as I tend to do on occasion. I believe they won the first 3 or 4 US Open Cups. But I believe, if you are so inclined, folks, go try to find that documentary on Bethlehem Steel FC, the first paid professional football club here in the United States. It's a neat story.
And what years was that?
What is that photo I have? I think it's 1918. So it goes at least back that far. I have a reproduction of a team photo of Bethlehem Steel FC that I got at the Bethlehem Steel or the Bethlehem Welcome Center on Main Street. From 1918, I think it was, is that photo,
Wow.
I think. What's that? Okay. They limited it to Eastern European members?
No, they tried to stop Eastern Europeans from limiting.
Limited to come to the country. Yeah. Yeah. But it's a neat story. You should show the kids that one. And I think there's two, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that there's two versions of there's two versions of that documentary. I think there's like a 25-minute version, and I think there's a longer hour and a half one, but it's a great piece of football history, and it's right in our own backyard. And up until 3 seasons ago, I think it was 3 seasons ago, the academy team for the Philadelphia Union, played at Lehigh University as Bethlehem Steel FC.
Oh, that's cool.
And they are now the Union 2, as you and I recognize, but it's because I don't know why, but MLS wouldn't let them play at Lehigh anymore because lighting and seating capacity or some crazy thing. You only had a few hundred people at a game anyway. I don't know why it was such a big deal, but the lighting wasn't right and they had to find a new thing and nobody wanted to pay for it. And, because God knows the Union weren't making any money. They didn't want to pay the few $1,000s they need to upgrade the lights, and Lehigh wouldn't pay for it either. And because God knows they don't have any money, and it wouldn't even split. They couldn't even, then they went to the city wouldn't pay for it, and they shouldn't have. But they couldn't even agree to split. So now they are back in Philadelphia and they play under the bridge at the Union Stadium. And I don't know the name of the Union Stadium either, but it's right under the bridge. Like almost literally right under the bridge. That's an interesting spot. I've not been to that one. But boy, when I see it on TV, I think to myself, it's a little weird being right under a bridge. It's a bit odd. So what is holding? How difficult do you think it's going to be for the sport to continue to grow? When I started following the sport, it was purely pay-per-view. Quite literally, the only club you could watch in the United States was Manchester United. The only club you could see on TV, and you had to pay for every single match. You ordered it through the cable. At least where we were living at the time, Cablevision in the greater New York City area, and you ordered every single match. Some of them were $6, depending on who they were playing. They might have been as much as $25. And then it became very proliferated. Fox, I'm sure you remember the Fox Soccer Channel and Fox Sports World. And there was a real golden era there where you got every Premier League match for free. You always got Real and Barcelona. You got the big Italian matches, Juventus, AC, Inter for free, and Bayern, which is pretty much the only German team. It's about a 3-team league right now, but at the time it was Bayern and pretty much nobody else, and for free, and you could see them every week. That has now kind of clawed back. ESPN Plus, the subscription service, now they have the Italian league. No, Paramount Plus has the Italian league. ESPN has the Spanish and French, if I'm not mistaken, and possibly still the German, or Fox might still have the German. But there's subscription services. You have to pay money again to see these matches that you got used to seeing. Isn't that, and even MLS. I mean,
only a select few you'll find.
Yeah, we're 70 miles from Red Bull Arena. I have to pay to watch them. And this season, it ain't where it could have been a nickel a month. I wouldn't pay it. Brutal. God, they've been terrible. But that said, if you were to do something like that with baseball, it would kill the sport. Why is football cutting its own nose off by making everything again? I guess you could say that about regular TV shows too. Everything's a subscription service and they save the real good stuff for the subscription service. But one of the things that grew football here is that we could watch it. What do we do? What are we doing to our sport?
Well, it's, I don't know. I think it's a culmination of things. I'm sure. The thing that I don't understand though is that you can watch what 6, maybe 8 NFL games on a Sunday on ABC, CBS, NBC, whatever. You can watch whatever baseball game is on almost every night, during the season on different channels. And they're still they're still making money. They're still making money. The exposure is probably helping them make more money, actually, especially with COVID and restrictions and everything else that we've seen in the last year and a half. You can't pack 110,000 people in Beaver Stadium right now.
Yeah.
So they've got to adapt, and they have to try to make their revenue somehow, which that falls under the whole financial fair play thing. But anyway, that's another story.
I was gonna. It's funny too because I was gonna ask about financial fair play. I don't even know how to.
Yeah.
If you're a novice to football, how to explain financial fair play is just. That's a whole thing, but I interrupted your answer. Go ahead.
It's a tough one.
Go ahead.
But yeah, they've found these other ways to still generate revenue, and you would think, especially with MLS, and the availability of being able to. I mean, let's face it, everybody's been stuck in their homes for a year and a half. Lots of people have been stuck in their homes for a year and a half. That is an opportunity, I think, to grow exposure.
Make it free, let people watch.
Make it free, let people watch it. Then when we open these places back up, guess what? Your new stadium in Columbus is paid for. All these other things. So I have to agree that, they really are like cutting their nose off to spite their face. And, it could grow exponentially more with more exposure. I honestly believe that.
Even the number one club competition on the planet, the largest club competition on the planet, the Champions League, the European Champions League, is now entirely on subscription service. Can't watch it on free. Certainly the group stages, you can't watch it for free anymore. You have to subscribe to Paramount Plus. And I believe they didn't put a free Champions League match on. Last season, they had it as well. I don't think they put on a free match until the final. I mean, it wasn't even like subscription for the groups, which the diehards would pay for anyway.
Right.
And even when they got to the quarterfinals or semifinals, that it began to be on quote unquote regular TV. Nope, nothing till the final.
And most people don't even know what's happening.
Well, then you're flipping through the channels and you're like, what's a final of this? What is this thing?
Yeah, exactly.
And suddenly we don't even know what it is. And suddenly we're at the final. How did that happen?
Exactly. There isn't near enough exposure, and you can't say that enough, because like you said, there's hundreds of professional teams in our own country that we could be watching.
And probably, and no exaggeration, Ryan, probably 1,000 if you took in Mexico and Canada.
Yeah, exactly. And the exposure that you could get for the sport from that, it's right in your fingertips, but can't find it anywhere. So nobody knows it's happening. Absolutely nobody knows it's happening.
And how do you sell something that no one knows exists?
Right.
267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189 is the phone number. Call us on anything that's on your mind as the football talk continues. Ask a football question. That's cool. We'll take that too. If you have a serious political question about the events of the past week or the upcoming events or something that you want to get off your chest, feel free to join the program. That other side of information is our home group Facebook page. I will see you there. I've said hello to everybody who has come in so far. We haven't had any comments or questions so far. Quiet night in the chat. That's okay. That happens from on occasion, but feel free to add anything you want there. I will see it. I will ask it. We will respond to it. Hot101.net is the main website, the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, the TuneIn Radio app, and you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. And our friends and family at TCP, thank you all for being there. Remember, if you've missed any of the program, youtube.com/that other side of information. Whenever the radio guy can't speak, that's a problem. That's generally a problem. Let me ask you a serious question that came to my mind as somebody who's coaches the sport. It's been one of the reasons I think there was a mass migration of kids from American contact football to world football. And by the way, world football is a contact sport. Let's just be blunt. There's a lot of contact in football. Just because you're not wearing pads and a helmet and whatever else, football is a contact sport. Fouls in football are not basketball touched you on the shoulder while you were shooting kind of fouls. It's I slid through and ripped your knee to pieces. It's Roy Keane fouls. It's Roy Keane, Robert Perez type fouls. Right, I've ended your career because I just did your knee because I don't like how you look, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, but as somebody who coaches, there's been a lot of focus for young kids on concussion. I believe the English FA has now ruled that they're not going to head the football in any sanctioned FA league, from 5 years to I think 13 it is now. There's no heading. That's it. None. No more. Because of a concussion worry, but also long-term brain injury, rattling around. My neck is so ruined, I can't even imitate the motion. You've headed a football, the torque that guys can put on their neck to redirect that foot, the just whipping of the neck in ways that really shouldn't even happen in a car crash. How do you handle it as a parent or as a coach to say, this is part of the sport, but we can be careful? Or does the FA have it right that there shouldn't be heading in football? Maybe it's time to stop heading in football. Are you a proponent of the padded headgear, the almost rugby style type head covering? Are you a proponent of that? The whole issue of concussion and heading in football as a coach and as a player, how do you feel? Let me just open it and tell, how do you feel about it?
Well, I am somewhat of a proponent of the headbands for younger clubs. I think that most of it is I know this sounds generic, but it is what it is. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. I've seen people really get hurt, doing it the wrong way. You think you're going up for a side shot and you end up hitting yourself in the face, and there you go. Your nose is broken. You're done for the day. Yeah. There's a right and a wrong way to teach that kind of thing. You can't teach that to the 6-year-olds. You can't teach that to the 8-year-olds. That's something that needs to come later on. Early teens, U12, U14 is when that should really start being implemented, I think, because
is it just the basic of lacking the dexterity at 6 to figure out how to head a football?
Some of it for sure. preparation with stretching, things like that. I mean, if you've ever watched the pregame of it, I'm sure you have, those guys are stretching for 45 minutes,
Mhm.
every part of their body for 45 minutes.
And the
you know?
real part that no one sees is you talk about the pregame warm up. They have the post-game warm down
Exactly.
where they start
Exactly.
off again sprinting
Mhm.
at full force and then slowly inch it down to no activity and then in the showers. And I'd never heard of such a thing before.
Mhm.
I started following football was the warm down. You don't see that in the NFL. You don't see it in
Mhm.
baseball. You don't see it in any other sport. Game is over. Let's hit the showers, kids. Time to put the body on ice. Footballers run. What is the average during a football match? It's 10 miles, I think.
At least
6 to 10 miles, I think it is.
depending on position, at least midfielders more than that, I would say.
And after that much running, sometimes 3 times a week, the warm down for another however long the warm down is. I don't even know. Nobody covers the warm down. We always see the warm ups.
Right.
Nobody covers the warm down unless the two clubs get in a fist fight or something, or the manager has a go at somebody or they chase the ref or something. But I mean, you don't see anything about the warm down. But the warm down is such a big. I never even knew it existed.
Yeah, and that's something that we did, on the teams that I played for as a child. I mean, even coming up through, my dad, one of the first things that he would tell me is, you've got to stretch. If you don't stretch, you're going to lock up. And if you lock up, you're not playing. It's that simple. Well, he's right. I mean, it's just like anything else. You drink a ton of water and you eat a lot of oranges at halftime and you stretch for a half an hour after the game. It's just
or if you're Rio Ferdinand, you eat orange Jaffa cakes.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the pitch during the match. You eat Jaffa cakes. One of the funniest things in football I've ever seen. Somebody threw him a pack of Jaffa cakes and he ate it right in the middle of the match. But so what ages is it that you've coached?
I've coached U6, the real young. And then I've coached U12, U14, and U16.
So what groups did you head with or not head with?
Well, 14 and 16.
Nothing
12,
before that.
Nothing before that. That's not even something that I would bring up in practice. Some of the younger kids would be like, I want to head the ball. It's like, no, we're not doing that yet.
Well, at 6 years old, it's and again, the very basics for those who you might not know. There's 11 players on a pitch per side in a football match. The keeper plus 10. And at 6 years old, it's 20 people.
Oh, it's a clump.
It's
clump soccer. They're just running around like this.
Right. It's a big clump of kids while the coach screams, remember the formation.
Somebody go get the ball.
Get into your position. But really, there's 20 kids just following the ball, kicking each other in the shins and following each other. And the two keepers are, sitting in goal with gloves that are 6 times too big for their hands and so on. But because the danger, if danger is not too drastic of a word, but the danger of heading is really twofold, it would seem to me. It's the constant impact on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Well, really threefold. The constant impact on the head, the possibility of going up into the air with the opponent and clashing heads, and we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be, we've seen people knocked out cold live on TV, laying on the pitch. I remember the gentleman from, it was an Italian club, if I'm not mistaken, got knocked out, started to swallow his own tongue. And one of his teammates came over, pulled his jaw open and pulled his tongue out from the back of his throat, saved him. But also that, like I said, that torque,
mm-hmm.
that whipping action on the neck, that if you saw it in a crash, in a car safety video, you would think, ooh, Ooh, that's a broken neck. That's a snap. That's whiplash. But when you see some of these guys whip that head with a force, I'm even lacking the right term, how they don't give themselves whiplash. I know they actually do strap the weight on the back and
Mhm.
do the, I mean, so really it's a threefold thing. And when you're 6, you can't do any of it right.
No, no, it's dangerous. It's it's very dangerous physically and otherwise. For someone that age. So like I said, it's at 12 you start implementing um, form and things like that. 14 is when me personally, when I would really start implementing that kind of thing, into the way of play. But until then, no. So I am exactly. There she goes again. So I am definitely a proponent of those for younger ages because let's face it, in a game situation, sometimes instinct takes over and you end up getting hit in the head or you're not thinking and it's basically what I find with the younger kids is that they run around with their hands behind their back like this, their arms behind their back because they know they're not allowed to touch the ball, so they're just running around like this and they end up hitting things. It's just the way it goes. So I'm definitely a proponent for that. I don't think that at an adult level or um, more skilled level that it's necessarily that much of an issue, because at that point there's a lot of form and conditioning and years of how to manage yourself during the match that kind of comes into play at that point, which is another thing you don't see typically when you see two opposing players coming up at the same time. It's usually when they're looking opposite directions for some reason. Typically, there's that element of sportsmanship that's kind of ingrained into the game as well. That if someone's already up for one, you don't go up for it at the same time. Kind of like the helmet laws in American football, same sort of thing. You don't deliberately just ram your head into somebody. Our football is pretty much the same way. Is there that freak chance that something can happen? Of course, with anything, you have that. But like I said, it's a part of the game that is sort of unavoidable in a sense that, I mean, the Orlando match that I was watching the other night, 3 corners towards the end of the match, the end of the period, and all 3 were missed headers. But he goes up for the header, they defend right away. They don't throw their knee into the guy's head or that kind of thing. So it's a part of the.
Wouldn't there also be the increased skill of, as you develop your body and your game develops, that the ball that you might instinctually think you have to head as a 6, 8, 10, 12-year-old, you could chest it as a 14, 16, 18-year-old. You don't have to take it.
Right.
You catch it on the chest and drop it down. You don't have to head it.
Right. Right. And it's, even with the U14 and U16 kids that I coached, you really kind of teach that as a last resort. I mean, typically it's thigh, chest, dead leg, that type of thing.
There, to me, it's still watching the sport as long as I have, coming up on 20 years. There's nothing more impressive to me than when the keeper drives one down 60 yards or more, 80 yards sometimes, or that cross pitch, that change of form, a change of the switch of play, where that ball travels however far it might travel and somebody just catches it on the ankle and just sets it right in front of them. And some of them are 60, and you know what I mean. The keeper will drive one out sometimes 60, 80. You know, the pitch is 110 yards long. It is, I think I have that right, 110.
Mhm.
66 yards wide and 110 long. I think I have that right.
Mhm.
You know, they'll drive it 80 yards and just catch it right in the inside and drop it right in front of them. There's still to this day, nothing impresses me more. I mean, I've seen bicycle kicks, I've seen hat tricks, I've seen I've seen free kicks, you know, from 40 yards out that 21 people all miss and are astonished by. You know, it is really something special. But when you say that ball just come right over the shoulder and just drop it right in front of them, set it right in the ankle and drop it, catch it with the foot,
Mhm.
is, oh God, there's nothing more beautiful.
Lots of bruises and calluses is
On the feet, yeah. Well, because the soccer boot itself, what they call the boot, is no boot, and it's the thinnest of shoes you could possibly wear.
Yeah.
There's no padding, there's no protection,
Uncomfortable as can be.
very, very low cut.
Mhm.
It's not like you could wear high tops
Mm-mm.
to play in football. I suppose you could if you really wanted to, but no one does, obviously. They're almost like track 100-meter track not even sneakers. I would assume very little padding
Mhm.
on the foot with spikes. They're meant to be exceptionally light and flexible. And by doing that, it means there almost no material, no padding, no support, no nothing.
Right.
I think is partly why you see so much ankle damage, is because there's nothing there to hold it together.
Right.
I find
Changing
football,
direction. And
yeah, I find football boots to be, like, you just think there should be so much more, and it just isn't. You know, your feet are always getting stepped on. Are you worried at all? There are some studies that, especially for some reason in the women's game, I guarantee you there are men suffering from this as well, but all the reports that I have seen have been through women's football that are played on these artificial pitches. They're getting sick. And it's generally believed that they are getting sick from the constant and overexposure of the chemicals used to make the artificial pitch, and especially the shredded tires put in between the fake blades of grass. But schools and municipalities will use this artificial pitch because it's indestructible, and it might last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And it doesn't have to constantly be cut and reseeded and grown and sometimes ripped up and completely replaced like regular natural grass. So they use an artificial pitch. It's more expensive in the front end, but they save boatloads on the back end. But they are, exactly as I said, artificial. Do you worry about kids being exposed? Are you familiar with those studies? I would assume you've seen them. Does it worry you about do you coach on a lot of artificial pitch? Do you have a lot of natural pitch?
no, mostly I can only think of one match that I coached that was on artificial. Other than that, though, it's typically always natural grass, which is obviously the best surface for sure. I have heard a little bit about those studies and what they're finding, and that is definitely concerning because everybody's starting to go with that for everything. I mean, even high school football teams, they're putting in new artificial turf and their tracks are artificial now. And, it's our local high school here actually thought about doing artificial turf for their field hockey team, as well as others in the area. So that's definitely a concern for kids. I wasn't aware that there was that broad of a scope of it, but yeah, it's definitely a concern if that's what they're finding. think that natural grass is, of course, it's more work, but it's just the best thing no matter what. I think for pretty much all sports, well, all the way across.
The world governing body for football is FIFA. And I got to be honest, I don't even know what the hell FIFA stands for. It's the Federation of International Football Associations, I think. But they are the world governing body for football, both amateur, national, and professional. To be honest, it's one of the only governing bodies of its kind, if not the only governing body of its kind, that governs both private professional football clubs and national teams and the women's game. And it is a singularly unique world governing body. And they continue to mandate that clubs have grass. We've seen the U.S. men's national team play on places where they've had to bring in grass and cover the artificial pitch with grass, or else they can't play there. You did just answer the question. You've been lucky so far, but why? And I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you for posterity anyway. Why do all of our kids and all of our 6 and 8s and 10s, girls, boys, high schools should be on grass? No?
Absolutely. Absolutely should be. Less injury. A multitude of things. It should definitely be natural surfaces no matter what, in my opinion. It's more labor intensive, and that's where that comes in. Because, unfortunately, a lot of school districts may have, a plethora of teams playing on one field.
We've all seen those artificial pitches with literally 10 different colors of lines down. I don't know how kids play on it, to be honest, and they don't get confused between the American football lines, the lacrosse line, the field hockey line, the football, the pitch outline, and then goodness knows whatever the hell else.
Mm-hmm.
We actually saw in the Olympics an artificial baseball pitch. I mean, it was just painted brown in between the bases, and then there was a bit of a square around the base that was actual dirt. And the rest of it was just painted brown. I've never seen players play on such a thing. It was really odd. It was really strange. And actually, the Olympic softball, they put a rubber mound. Well, they don't pitch from a mound. Softball doesn't pitch from the mound. They pitch from the flat ground. But
yeah,
they dropped what looked like a rug on the same artificial pitch that they used for baseball, and just sort of laid like this rug. And that was the softball pitching circle. It was so cheap. I've never seen anything quite like it. I really haven't. It was really sad. If I was the baseball and softball nations that took part, I'd have had a cow. And I think the women really got screwed because they had the fake. Their bases obviously are shorter. Mm-hmm. So you had all the bases inside the painted green artificial pitch. It wasn't even on the brown artificial fake dirt track. And they put a temporary fence up to act as the fence. Like, it was very, very cheap. It was very, I think the least we could do for our kids is grass.
Yeah.
It is more expensive. Yeah. There's no question. It's more expensive and obviously requires a lot of maintenance, but it's better for the environment. We're going to keep kids from getting sick. We're going to get less injuries. The ground, you might think a hard baked ground doesn't give much, gives a hell of a lot more than plastic grass sitting on top of concrete. I guarantee you.
That's absolutely right.
7 p.m. entering our final hour of the program. Just a very relaxed conversation about world football. And really, kind of branching. One of the things I love about this program is the way that, a topic will come up and we can pursue it. We have the freedom to just take that road. And now really talking about youth sports really in general. And it's, football, youth football, but really some of the issues that surround youth sports as it pertains to football. And I think that's one of the great things about this program. I can sit here and tell you Man United stories for days. Having been a 20-year supporter of the sport and of the club. And we will talk a little World Cup before we say goodbye to you. But, the same issues of your child's American football team or the cheerleading team or the field hockey team, the baseball, the softball, and remember, boys and girls football. I mean, football is one of the sports that is as popular with girls, and as populated by girls as it is by boys, especially at the younger and younger. Obviously, kids, they peel off of that as they get older. They might lose interest or get hurt or choose a different sport or prefer prioritize academics or so on. But when you get down to the younger, and Ryan will, I'm sure, can agree, I would agree, I hope I'm right, at least everything I've read about it is that it's true that more girls play football than play anything else. They play soccer, they play football. So there's all that. But anyway, it is the top of the hour. 267-227-9189. If you guys are afraid to call me again tonight, and I don't understand it, we're good guys. It's okay. It'll be okay. We won't beat you up, I promise. 267-227-9189. That other side of information on Facebook, or stay right where you are if you've missed any of the program, youtube.com/that other side of information, or you can come to the page now and say hello. hot101.net, hello, and thank you for being there. Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, TuneIn Radio, tell Alexa to play hot101.net, and TCP, hello and welcome home. Great to see you all again. We are here live every Sunday evening, and we are on the TCP Roku channel every Wednesday evening. Thank you for being here. And again, if you miss any of the program, our YouTube channel, we are also on Instagram and Patreon and TikTok and Twitter. There's just about nowhere that you can't find us. We won't go on Twitch. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But all the other places you'll find us. As a youth coach, there's a lot of horror stories about sports parents. Would you like to take the final hour and tell us about youth parents?
Oh, I don't even
And
know
I
where to begin.
desperately want to make fun of your wife and our friend and say what a youth parent she is. But then again, she's so much into the sporting stuff. I'm not sure that she qualifies. But she's listening to this right now and go, oh, am I going to kill him when we see him? But tell me about youth parents, because it actually is a thing. It's a big thing. The screaming, we've all seen the videos and the stories of the parents who attack the coach because their kid didn't play, or who beat up the referee in the parking lot, or trip the player from the opposite team on the sideline. I mean, we see some weird crap from sports parents. Have you suffered it? Have you seen it? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse?
It seems to me now, soccer is is not excused from that whatsoever.
No, it's not.
It's definitely not. You hear all of the stories of the parents just throwing absolute fits and things like that. And yes, there have been a few of those throughout the years that I've dealt with, and nothing too horrible. Mostly what I find is that especially in youth ball, the kids' parents rather seem to be a lot more involved with the team than I've seen in other sports. I don't really know why that is. It seems like you always have those volunteers, to bring drinks and to bring the snacks for halftime, and to, go pick up the sock orders and, things like that. And when you're ordering kits and jerseys and things, there's always a lot of people that are willing to volunteer to help with that kind of thing. which is nice because you hear so many times of the horror stories. And like I said, they're no exception. We have had a few of those. However, one of the things that I kind of implemented as a coach was most of the parents of the kids that I coached were my age. I'm 41, and my oldest is 16.
Told you everybody was younger than me.
Yep. A little bit, not much, a little bit. But so most of the parents were my age. And I would say, listen, let me do my job as the coach to stand up for your kids. You don't have to throw stuff onto the field. You don't have to, grab the guy by his shirt as he's running by, that kind of thing. And typically it didn't really go all that bad. I did see that on, other ends of the field, other sides of the field. I saw some people get tossed out, and, that happens. Emotions get high from time to time, but I don't really see that as much as you think that you would.
Do you think is it possibly because of the relative, not explicit, but the relative unfamiliarity with the sport itself, that it's harder for a parent to go, you shouldn't be starting that kid, you should be starting that, or you shouldn't be doing a 4-3-2-1, it should be a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-2, or you don't have the wall, there shouldn't be 4 guys in that wall, there should be 5, or why are you taking a short corner? I hate short corners, by the way. What a waste of an opportunity when teams take a short corner. It makes me mental. But that said, because not that they don't know the sport, but again, generally, I'm making a general statement, not a specific to every single parent, because there are parents like you now who have played the game. The U.S. has been in a World Cup. I think our first World Cup was in 1936, if I'm not mistaken. Football's not a new thing to the country. The English created the game. They spread the game throughout the globe via the empire. And though we were not part of the empire, they brought it here too. But that said, is it because of the relative unfamiliarity with the sport? It's hard to be tough on you. You played the sport professionally. It's hard to bitch about it. But I can bitch about baseball because I played it. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense to you? Or is that part?
Yeah.
Do you think that's partly why you might not have as much crap on you as maybe the youth baseball team or softball team coach does?
That's fair. I think that's certainly fair. And an example of that would be the last U12 team that I coached was where we formerly lived. It wasn't where we are now, it was where formerly lived. And the problem was that the league was thinking about just dismantling the team altogether and not having one, because there weren't enough kids interested to make a full team. So what ended up happening was I ended up with 13 kids on the team, and all of them but one was from the football team, the American football team, and never played soccer a day in their lives. Never. And here we are, getting thrown into a league of other, U12 teams who've been playing since they were 4, 6, 8, 10, now 12. And my guys had no clue whatsoever. So when I was brought on to be the coach, the parents were all like, we don't know. We don't have any idea. He just said, yeah, I'll play. So here he is,
So good luck with that.
Here it is,
And we'll enjoy that. Good luck with that.
And I'll tell you what, that was the winningest team, one of the winningest teams that I've ever coached. They won every single match that year. Now, we started practicing a little bit early and did more than one a week. and that kind of thing. Because like I said, these kids, natural born athletes, can run all day, can jump all day, you know, can switch direction all day long, but they never had a ball at their feet, so I had to kind of train them to not touch things. Don't touch things. And
You know what? I've heard. I promise. I'll let you finish that. It just popped into my head. I've had a lot of my friends from the UK tell me that's why there's so many good, and usually your first choice for a lot of clubs around the planet, your first choice for a goalkeeper are Americans, because we do everything with our hands. Every sport that we do is with our hands. And you might not think hockey is with your hands. So what the hell you think you're controlling the stick with? We do everything with our hands.
Yep.
And that's what there was a good stretch there. You'll remember the era, the Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, Tim Howard era, where clubs, even lower level clubs, even in England and across Europe, just get me an American between the pipes.
Mhm.
And we still have, you have Zach Steffen at Manchester City. You have Evan Horvath is at Bruges in Belgium. I can't even name them all. There's a couple more over there, and I'm blanking on them. There's a couple in Germany. And I think there's one in Holland. But I'm really stretching. I couldn't even name them all. But and then oddly enough, they're talking about Matt Turner, who was the keeper during the Gold Cup, being better than all of them. And they're the ones that are in Europe. So there was a good stretch of time where it was just, I don't care who you find me, just get me an American keeper, because they can do everything with their hands. And it's not really, it's true, isn't it?
It is. It is true. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
And going back to that, my football story of 2002, we'll run and run and run and run. And when you guys are collapsed over from a lack of oxygen, we'll run some more.
Mm-hmm. And then you get up and run again, and then you run backwards.
And actually I think part of the national team identity that's been lost is that Brian McBride, where he was mud from chin to boot, and usually always bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you see Brian McBride go up for a header and cut his eye like a boxer? If it wasn't bleeding, Brian McBride wasn't on the pitch. My favorite American footballer of all time, by the way.
Yeah, and not that kind of
not the Landon. I mean, everybody loved Landon Donovan and Dempsey, and and I love Pulisic, and I think Gio Reyna is something special. I think he's the real dark horse in the whole American setup is Gio Reyna. But Brian McBride was just he's beloved at Fulham. McBride, there was a push for them to put statue of him outside Craven Cottage. He's beloved in Fulham still to this day. And that's the American footballer, isn't it? It's a bit of that American football mentality in the beautiful game of, you might be able to dribble past me, but I will just shoulder you. I will just take you. Take that. You're going to go around me. I'll go through you. And then when you can't get up, I'll run past you.
And that ties into what we were talking about earlier with the artificial turf and things like that. I mean, that's part of the game. Part of the game is when, you're stretching and you're warming up and you're getting ready to go out onto the field, and then it pours, and you're sitting there going, oh man, this is going to be a mud bowl.
Hey,
and it
as
is.
a United supporter, there's players, and I only go back to Sir Alex, but there's players that Sir Alex Ferguson tried to bring to Manchester United, and they said, we hate the weather. It's always piss and rain. We're not going. When you play it, especially in the months of Manchester, if you know a map of England, Manchester's north. I believe it's on the same latitude as Maine or Newfoundland, if I'm not mistaken. If you take a latitude line, take it across, it's around Maine and the Newfoundland area. October, November, December,
It's cold.
January, February, March. It's cold. It snows and it rains. Can you imagine on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, playing a League Cup match against MK Dons? And even in your own stadium that seats 78,000, there's 10,000 people because actually the English are a lot more hardy than that. Old Trafford sells out. They could be playing 11 nuns. Old Trafford sells out. So I'm being a bit goofy on that, but where it might not be a complete sellout. Maybe it's only 70,000 or 75,000 instead of 78, and it's just piss and rain, and it's 40 degrees out, and you got to play football, and you're from the south of Italy, you're from the south of France, you're Spanish, you're Mexican, you're Brazilian, and you're just like, what is this? I mean, there's Brazilian. Ronaldinho wouldn't go to Manchester. He said, I'd love to play for Manchester United. I'd like to play for you. I don't want to play in Manchester.
Yep.
And you can't sign the man.
Right. You can't just be an away player.
Only for the Champions League matches, in Seville or at Barcelona or at Real Madrid or at Turin or on the Isle of Sicily or in Turkey or in Cyprus or something. Like, you just can't. You got to play Newcastle as well.
Yeah.
The only place with worse weather than Manchester.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of it. I mean,
did you guys do professional footballers? I will say one thing the MLS does that I think is quite smart, that they don't even always do in Europe. If there's lightning, they suspend the match.
Right. Yeah.
No. They tell the fans to run for cover.
Yeah.
We're going to wait for this to pass, and then we'll continue.
Yeah.
Even in Europe, they don't always do that, and they probably should. But even then, they don't do it. But as a youth coach, did you guys play in all sorts of weather, or did you stop?
No, absolutely. No,
you played everything. Good. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
I had to. I mean, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old playing, if we got up to the field and it was just a mud hole, hey, hope we brought a change of clothes for the way home, because you're getting dirty. And I mean, it's just, that was part of the game, coming out with dirt and grass wads all over you and
soaking wet.
Yep. I mean, that was part of the game. And it's funny because the younger kids, they like that a lot more than the older kids. The younger kids are like puddles. I'm there. And, it's a lot less coaxing to get them out on the field when it's like that. But yeah,
something new to the sport has been the hydration break, which again I think is just a safety thing. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that FIFA has adopted it. It is not universal for every single match, but when weather conditions reach a certain level, a certain temperature and a certain humidity level, they will stop around the I think it's the 25th, 30th minute of the first half, and around the 65th, 70th minute of the second half, for all intent and purpose dividing into 4 quarters, except that it's not it's only like a 2-minute break. Usually the TV's networks don't even take a commercial during a hydration break. It's not that long. I think it's only 2 minutes, I think. But it's a complete stop and play. Everyone comes over. They just down however much water, Gatorade, whatever it is that they drink, Lucasade, whatever it is that they might drink. Do you guys do the hydration break at a youth level? Because it's soccer's a summer sport here in the United States. So do you guys do the hydration break?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, with AYSO, it's split up into 4 periods. So in between every period, there's a break for, hydration, and then there's a halftime as well, which you spend, 10, 15 minutes or whatever, stretching and, more hydration and eating and, whatever. So yeah, it's kind of built into the match, at that level. Now that goes away as you get older, but at that level, it's built right into the scheduling. So
These are common sense things, though, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, I don't think you can expect. We almost tend to expect kids in American football at 6 years old strap on all the pads and go out and knock heads, kid. And I don't know that that's realistic. And certainly these built-in safety measures that tend to, like a banana, we peel them away slowly as you get older and as the body develops. It just seems to me to be common sense. And it seems to me to be, careful conservatives, seems to me to be science.
Mm.
Would you
Yes.
say that's is that your experience? I mean,
Yep.
just common sense. It's science. The bodies,
Absolutely.
they're not up for it.
You cannot, like you said, 10 miles a match. A midfielder may run 30, depending on how many periods of play, that particular player is in. And the amount of, it's very, very taxing on your body, physically, obviously. You run that much and it's 92 degrees outside and no shade, you're going to dehydrate real quickly. So it's definitely a good thing that they kind of put that into place as normal practice, because that's the one.
And maybe with the exception of gymnastics, football, professional football at the highest levels, even in the what we refer to as the lower leagues, the championship in England or USL 1, Serie B, the whole age structure of football is just fundamentally different than, maybe with the exception of American football, is different than other sports. United just paid $18 million for Rafael Varane. Absolute world class, one of the best central defenders on the planet. I don't have to tell you, they signed them, but I'm just for the folks at home. France international, World Cup winners, won the Champions League, he's won the league. There's not a footballing award. He hasn't won the event. Did he win an award for best defender on the planet? I think he might have once. I don't think there's a footballing award at a professional level he has not won. He's 28. And you had a contingent of United supporters. He's too old. You can't sign him. His best days are gone. Wayne Rooney broke into the league at 16.
Yep.
Marcus Rashford broke in with United at 18.
There was one, I just saw an MLS team.
Could you imagine an 18-year-old kid running out for the New York Giants, or for the New York Football Giants, or for the Eagles, or for the Yankees, or for the Mets, or the Pirates, or at 18, at 16, and then at 30? Well, pretty much done, kid. You're done at 30.
Yeah.
The whole time scale of football is just different than pretty much every other sport, except perhaps gymnastics, maybe tennis, and probably American football, really. Maybe rugby, but even there's some guys in their 30s that are still playing rugby.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the whole time scale of football is just different.
Mm-hmm.
And the starting at 4.
Right.
Those kids that you talked about before, the American football players that figured, give soccer a go, why not? I don't think most people realize how late in life that is, even at 12.
Right.
You're 6 years behind.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yes. Yep.
Or
Yes.
more.
More.
I've heard of 4-year-olds that are out kicking.
Yep. And like I said, my first team I was 4. I played when I was 4 years old. Dad said, "Hey, you're playing. This is happening." Okay.
Well, yeah, at 4. I mean,
Didn't know any better.
Okay.
I get to kick a ball. Okay.
Sounds
Great.
good to me.
Yeah. But you're right. I just saw the other night, and I can't. It's right there on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember who it was, but there's a 16-year-old homegrown. There she is again.
Fantastic.
There's a 16
And the dog too. We're getting lots of cameos.
Oh, yeah.
That's brilliant. Because
Yep,
now the
we
dog's
have,
just following her.
We have
That's
Izzy
great.
here, yeah. There's a 16-year-old homegrown. I can't remember what team that was. I just read about it the other day. And anyway, but 16 years old, and when I was 14, 15, when I was able to practice, with the Metro Stars of all teams, I mean, it was 14. It was 14, 15.
There's still so much body development that still had to happen for you at that point.
And those of us that were there, that were that young, obviously we were the youngest there, but now, like you said, there's I was just watching the other night too. He's a player for Orlando. He's 17, 18. Amazing.
Out of their academy, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And amazing kid. 18 years old.
But isn't that the thing that bothers me though is that cuts both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because Wayne Rooney comes up with Everton and scores a Premier League goal at 16, and United then buys him for, it was a record at that time, but records are constantly, I want to say it was 55 million pounds I think they paid for him at that point. Then when the next guy comes at 16 and doesn't do that, we tend to then, well, how come you can't? Rooney did it at 16. Ronaldo did it at 17. Messi did it at 18. You're 22. How come you can't do that? We're still talking about individuals here, are we not?
Right. Yeah, you set that Kobe Bryant bar, because he is an example of that.
Because you could go to basketball. Because he went to the NBA out of high school. Why can't the rest of you? Right. Because you're not developed yet. There's still hormonal changes and growth plates and just maturity that comes, that we're all individuals. When it comes to that, we live in a society, we live in a community, we have shared values and shared goals. But in this particular, we're individuals. I may not fill out or develop, or I might go from 5'2" to 6'2" from my junior to senior years in high school, or maybe I do it from 7th grade to 8th grade. We're all different that way. It's one of the things that bothers me a great deal about football is Rooney got sold to United at 17. Okay, good. Good. That's great. And after he left United, went back to Everton, he was shite.
Yeah, and that's an incredible amount of pressure for a 17-year-old kid.
Right, because Marcus Rashford, goes to his hometown club and has never played anywhere else. And the only thing he's wanted to do in life was play for Manchester United. And so he's been there since he's 7 and debuts at 18 and just starts ripping it up. And because he's not been able to maintain that pace, and let's be blunt, he's not been able to maintain that pace. Now there's something wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there just isn't anything wrong with him. Maybe he's just, he's been a bit injury prone now, but maybe he's also being defended better, or he hasn't adjusted the game. We always talk about it in baseball. The pitcher adjusts to the batter has to adjust back, and then the pitcher has to adjust back, and maybe he's not adjusted his game, but it doesn't mean he's a throwaway. It doesn't mean he's garbage. One of the guys, you might agree with me on this. I'm very in a minority on this one, especially with my friends from Morristown, from the United Supporters Club we used to have in Morristown. Just because Victor Lindelof is not Nemanja Vidic doesn't mean he's shit. How many Nemanja Vidics were there in the history of football? Not a lot. Mm. And remember when United bought him, they're like, who? He came from where? What country is he from? And he was a dominant central defender for 10 years. He's one of the best central defenders on the planet for 10 solid years. And they paid almost nothing for him. When Patrice Ever came in that same January window, came with who? Came from where? French? He was a wing back defender for 10 years. It seems it's so unfair sometimes. Okay, so Victor Lindelof isn't Nemanja Vidic. Okay. So's just about everybody else on the planet.
Right. Right.
I mean, how unfair is that?
Yeah. To be compared to
Marcus
Ronaldo
Rashford,
and-
you're not Cristiano Ronaldo. So get at what? Come on.
Right.
You're talking
Yeah.
about one of the 5 greatest players in the history of the sport and the entirety of the planet. I mean, it's so unfair. Let me ask you about the World Cup. World Cup will be held in November of 22 because it is being held in the Emirate, the Arab Emirate in the Gulf of Qatar. Hundreds of imported workers, if not thousands, have died in the construction of the venues for this World Cup. Workers were brought in from all over the planet, but predominantly from the I was going to say the Polynesian countries, but they're not quite the right term. The Philippines, Indonesia, a lot from Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan. And the Qatari government confiscated their passports upon entry and said, you are now, for all intent and purpose, prisoners here until the venues are completed. Thousands have died in that construction. The United Nations has actually called it a human rights crisis. FIFA has done nothing and said nothing. And let's be honest, the Qataris basically bought themselves this World Cup. World Cups, like Olympics, are bid on. The Qataris also own Paris Saint-Germain. We now have 2 football clubs, by the way, that are owned by countries. Manchester City and the entire Manchester City conglomerate too, by the way. They own NYCFC. They have 2 clubs in Australia. They have 2 in Belgium. They have 1 in China. I think they have 1 in Russia. Clubs all over the planet, which used to be illegal too, but they have an awful lot of money, so now it's okay. What is this? I imagine, look, when the 2022 World Cup kicks off, I'll watch it. I'm a football fan. I might have a sour taste in my mouth, but I'll watch it. I want the USA to qualify for it. I want England to qualify for it. I want Ireland to qualify for it. Hell, I want Canada to qualify for it. But don't we have much like corporate taxes being cut in the United States, money isn't everything. Don't we have a duty as a footballing community to go to pressure FIFA, to pressure Qatar and say, what, come on now. I mean, it's too late for the people who've already been killed.
Right.
But, we still have almost another full year before that first match kicks off. It's not too late to do something. Don't we have a responsibility as a footballing community?
I definitely think that FIFA should, for sure. I mean, their name's going to be plastered all over the thing. I mean, just like it always is, I would find it hard to just come in on the day of the venue at that point and say, hey, look at what we did, when knowing when all of this happened in the meantime, and they could have done something about it and didn't. Yeah, absolutely. I think that they should be involved, as well as some of the other organizations across the world that are going to be involved in the World Cup in 22. They should all be involved. I mean, something you or I say isn't really going to make much difference, but you get a few of those bigger clubs with more money, more pull, if you will, and just to say, hey, what's going on here? Why is this happening? There has to be resources available. So if FIFA is the governing body of, football across the world, should probably have a hand in that, is my opinion.
Well, if they aren't going to do it, who's going to?
Right.
We did see the FBI a few years ago with a massive global corruption investigation of FIFA, of CONCACAF, which is for those of you who may not know, FIFA divides the world into what they call confederations. It's basically sections of the planet: Europe, Asia, Africa. Our little corner of the world here happens to be CONCACAF. It's Canada, Mexico, the United States, the Caribbean, and Central America. Once you cross, into I think it's Colombia that borders that peninsula, that becomes a different confederation. But ours happens to be North America and the Caribbean for all intent and purpose. It was a massive corruption scale or investigation, and I'm sure you remember the announcements that day. The whole, people resigned at FIFA. They were indicted by different countries. The U.S. indicted damn near everyone at CONCACAF. The president of U.S. soccer resigned. I mean, it was a figurative massacre. I mean, it just wiped people out all over the globe. We know that money, football is a sport. We watch it for the sport. We want our club to win. We want our country to win. And I want to think in that 90-ish minutes, we tend to forget that the whole damn thing is money. And money has built football, but isn't money probably the same thing that could very well destroy it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
entertainment, and I get that.
Yeah.
And it's sponsored, and it's a business, and I get that. But, we've seen that with college sports here in the US. The money is the exploitation of the players up until recently, where they can actually make a few bucks on their own likeness. It was free labor. Now, professional footballers are anything but free, but it is all driven by money, isn't it? I mean, It is a business, and I get that. And how Major League Baseball is a business, I get that too. And but like I said, for that 90 minutes, we kind of we drift away. Then it's just about passing, heading, corners, goals. Don't miss the sitter. What a tackle! What a great ball! What a great pass! But it is a money. But the same money that built it really could be the same money that rips it down. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I agree. With that is the struggle of it becoming more available and more accessible, to fans like us, is that, in order for that to happen, it does need to become commercialized to a point, just like every other professional sport. And with that comes all the good and bad that goes along with it. The bad being, you're always going to have he's, okay, somebody makes a slide tackle and they end up, coming up, staying on the ground. They stop play, and then you've got people saying, "Oh, he threw that on purpose." He's, look at him acting. It's just some smile on his face. That type of thing, and that kind of comes with that, because people lose the sense that it's a game. It's a game that every single one of those players on the field loves playing. Of course, they love getting paid for it too. There's no denying that. But yeah, it is kind of a struggle in a sense that, we needed that commercialization to be able to to bring it more to the forefront and be accessible to people. But at the same time, that's like you said, that's everything's downfall in the end.
And it does also tell you that your sport is doing well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could make the argument, as much as I hate it, and I really do hate it. I mean, it bothers me. I do pay for Peacock, God help me, because they have the Premier League, and I'm going to miss a good handful of United matches if I didn't have it. But I haven't sucked it up and paid for Paramount Plus yet to watch United in the Champions League, because it's you know, at least in the group stages, it's it's 6 matches. Do I want to pay another $20 a month for 6 matches? Yeah, not so far.
Mm-hmm.
Not so far. But yet we could make the argument that our sport is so healthy that these outlets are outbidding each other on what seems like almost a yearly basis to get a hold of it. So if they didn't think that people were going to pay that $20 a month or $10 or 15 or whatever the hell Paramount is, they wouldn't buy it.
Right.
NBC, you know, everybody loves to laud NBC for what they've done for the proliferation of the Premier League here in the US. I think it was actually Fox Soccer and Fox Sports that did it. You got every single match every weekend. You got the big clubs live, and you might get, if you were a Brighton fan, you might get it recorded, but every single Premier League match, all 10 of them, you could see on Fox Soccer every single weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And replayed ridiculous number of times during the week. And going back to when they were Fox Sports World, they did the hour, you know, the Sky Sports News sort of hour wrap up every single night. And, you know, I think they're the ones that are really responsible. I think NBC cut on the bandwagon. The presentation's a bit more polished, but you get that, you know. But if these TV outlets didn't want it, or didn't think it was valuable, they wouldn't want it, I guess is
right.
Meant to say. Butchered that a little bit, but, and it means our sport's healthy. It means our sport's growing. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. And, you know, therein lies a competition with those kinds of things is definitely shows growth, you know, and do I think that it still sucks that we can't just turn on the TV and watch any match we want?
Exactly.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
But that's just the way things go. You know, you have more options when they make more money. So
look, I don't think anything, for me, we don't have any football bars here in the Lehigh Valley. Really none. We have bars that show football if it happens to be on while they're open, but we don't have any football pubs anywhere here in the valley that I'm aware of. Certainly nothing like the one I came from in Morristown, New Jersey. But I think the single thing that tells me that football is alive and well, and that there is a proper market for it, especially here in the Lehigh Valley, the final of the last Women's World Cup, the Arts Quest organization here in Bethlehem, at the what's left of the Bethlehem Steel plant, started holding public viewing parties for all of the Women's World Cup matches. So that would have been 2019. Yes. Yeah, that would have been 2019. And the crowds kept growing. I went to the very first one with my brother-in-law. We took a couple of camp chairs. We bought some beers, and they put this huge screen up, and we sat and watched the match. And I happened to see the guy who runs Arts Quest, not because I know him, but just because I could tell he was the guy running things. And I actually tried to sell him radios. I tried to sell him for my job at that point, but he just said, I had to call people in. He's like, I had no idea this was going to be like this. we just thought we would do something on a lark. He's like, we just decided to do this a few days ago. Well, are you going to do it for the rest of the tournament? He goes, yep, we are now. They ended up actually adding the Gold Cup to it then too. And ironically had less people for the men in the Gold Cup than they did for the women. But that said, the final of the Women's World Cup that year was the US and France. I think they played France in the final in 19. They had 5,000 people outside in the scorching heat in front of a big, huge screen to watch the women win the 2019, win their 4th World Cup. There is a market.
Absolutely.
There is people do love the sport. They might, folks might not think they do, but they do. And it was a fun thing to see. It was a really fun thing to see. And I do wish I could open a football bar in this valley. I think I'd be quite popular.
Yeah. I think that they would go well in a lot of different places. You just don't see it around here. Just don't see it around here.
Well, not out by you. There's like nobody lives out there.
Yeah, there's not much. There's not much out here.
There's about 5 or 10 of you out there, isn't there? And 6 of them are in your own house.
6 of them are in my own house.
Oh, don't give me that look. It's a little less populated out there, all right? Kristen's over here going, what the hell's that about? It's because no one lives there, okay?
Yeah.
A lot less people live there. And don't say I grew up there, because where do you live now, sweetheart? That would be right. That would be the Lehigh Valley. So let's just get that straightened out. Ryan, we're going to wrap up here at the top of the hour. I want to just simply throw the floor open to you to see, to let you expound on anything that we covered but didn't get to fully cover, anything that maybe we did not get to cover, to explain everything behind you. How can people reach you, follow you, any of that fun stuff? How do people get involved in their local municipal football, things like that? Just tell me how, the floor is yours.
Well, first, I want to thank you again for having me. I had a good time. I had a good time sitting here chatting with you about this. I'm kind of disappointed nobody called us, but no, it is what it is.
Now you know what it's like to be me on a weekly basis when nobody freaking calls. Oh my God.
As far as what's behind me,
there's only two things keeping this from being my full-time job: advertisers and callers. So get on the ball there, kids. I've never shouted down or beat up a caller or made anybody feel silly or anything like that. I don't know why people are afraid to call, but they just are. I hope that will change. But that said, please, I'm sorry, but take the floor. I'm waiting for your wife to call too.
Yeah, well, yeah, she was
glad I didn't hold my breath. I've been waiting for that for months.
I kind of thought that this might be the time. Might be. No, she still didn't. But
anyway, the floor is yours. Again, everything I said, anything that we didn't get to cover, that we started but didn't get to finish, all the stuff behind you and how people can find you, follow you, advice on youth sports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Have at it. The floor is yours.
Well, basically, those of you that have been watching and have noticed probably the artwork back behind me on the wall of our office here. That's all done by my wife, Ashley. She is she's many hats she wears. Amazing mother, amazing wife, and she's an artist
sports
as well.
Fan.
Sports
sports fan.
Huge sports fan. Do not let her tell you any different.
Right.
There is the purple team, and that is it.
Right.
But it's always purple team.
That one. I don't know what sport they play, but that purple team, man. Woohoo!
And you kind of
something.
And you kind of touched on earlier that I'm involved in other things. I am, like I said, I work for an insurance company as my main job. I work for a very progressive company. which in many ways is a good thing in more ways than one. But you know, my wife is she's involved in the, she's involved in the Union County Democratic Committee. Who the other thing you see in my background right here is we are supporting Dan Greek for supervisor in Union Township. Great guy that is very, very quiet, very humble, and needs a lot more attention from the people around him. Can do a lot of great things. He's easy to find too, Dan Greek on Facebook, or you can get a hold of UCDC and they can put you in touch with him. As far as I go, getting involved into youth sports and like AYSO programs, North Send Penn programs, things like that are really the best way to get your kids involved in this sport. And those of you that have been listening have listened to Jeff and I talk about this football, for the last 3 hours. And I'm in my 40s, so is Jeff. And
I'm in my 50s.
You could have just
I told you everybody's younger than me.
You could have just left that at 40. See, I was trying to do you a
solid. Than me. I told you everybody's younger than me.
But it's something that it stayed with me my whole life. I got immeasurable experiences from that at a very young age. And it's things that it teaches you respect, and it teaches you discipline, and it teaches you sportsmanship, and a multitude of other things. And
teamwork.
Yes, and teamwork. And how do you have to function with your team? So many things that you can get out of it. It's not just a game, although it is a hell of a lot of fun to play. But getting your kids involved in something like that at a young age is invaluable. I think you'll find later on in their lives. They pick up a lot from that. And like I said, it's easy to get into because a lot of areas, a lot of municipalities or things like that, they're looking for more participants. They don't have enough. So AYSO and North Send Penn, they both have
and just the basics of it too, Ryan. Outside.
Right. You're outside, you're
in air and sunshine and getting a sweat going and a heartbeat and exercise and burning off energy and not doing this all the time. That just the basics of good old fashioned exercise. And I mean, we can all point to the teamwork and the overcoming adversity and the learning how to fail. Sports teaches us how to fail. We have to know how to fail. It's part of life. Not every endeavor is a success. You have to learn how to fail. And sports teaches us that. And I think sometimes parents tend to think though, well, my kid's never going to become a professional fill in the blank. That doesn't mean that from ages 6 to 12, 14, that those things don't still benefit you. Well, he's never going to become a professional soccer player. Well, yeah. So
maybe not.
So maybe not. I'm sure some of the friendships that you made in your days playing, and especially the guys that you shared that tryout experience with, you're probably still in contact. You're still friends. You have that bonded experience of, just sit back on a night when the kids, like tonight, when the kids and dog are running around and going, man, we were there, we did a pretty damn cool thing.
Did something cool. It's one of those things that never leaves you, in more ways than one. Like you said, it is more than just about, rather, becoming a professional. That's not the goal, really. I mean, it is for some, but that's not the best thing you're going to get out of it. Like that, I can guarantee. That's not the best thing you'll get out of it. because like you said, the likelihood of that is very, very low percentage. However, the things that you do get out of it are much more valuable, pretty much every walk of your life from then on. So sign your kids up for AYSO or whatever youth soccer or football organization you may have near you. Get involved, because it definitely needs to be. There needs to be more. There needs to be more.
And the friendships for the parents too.
Mhm.
Let's be honest. The kids make friends. Kids make friends easily, but you make friends with parents that you didn't know. They might be from a different part of town than you. They might even, who knows, they might even be in a different school if your town is big enough that you have multiple schools, but you've come together on the pitch, and it's a bonding thing. It really is. So, hey, thank you very, very, very much for doing this and for being here. I know you had a long weekend. But like I tell every person that comes here, every guest that comes here, I have bad news for you. You are part of the family now. So this
the bad news for you is that you're part of mine now.
I met just about everybody. The dog has started to do laps.
Yep. And
Oh
there's
God, she is hilarious. You know what's funny? I probably don't have to tell you this. If you told her you have to sit here with me and do this thing, she wouldn't be within 10 miles of that screen right now.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
You are going to sit here on my lap and do this 3-hour long Zoom with me. You could chase her around that house till kingdom come and you wouldn't catch her. But now that, leave Dad alone, he needs some privacy. We keep peeking.
Mhm.
Is that a juice box? No, we're eating something else. You're supposed to be brushing your teeth.
Oh, she's brushing her teeth. Yep. It's time to put the tiny
It is
pants
that
to
time, I guess. Okay. Well, listen, come back. Don't be a stranger to the program, both listening, watching, or to come back on the program. I am. We've had some repeat guests, not as many as I would wish, but you are part of the family now. The door is always open to you. If you have something that you want to share with our audience, you let me know, and you come back and you see us. And you too, young lady, you come back and you see us. But thank you so much for being here. 3 hours to take away from 4 kids is that's a long night. So I thank Ashley as well. And thank you for being here. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for having me. It was a good time.
Thanks. Well, I will say goodnight and let you go. I'm going to talk to the audience here for a few more minutes, and I'll talk to you soon.
Say bye. Wait, bye. Wait, bye. Now that's what we're getting.
No.
That's it. Thank you.
Bedtime.
Yep, it is.
Thanks again, mate.
Have a good night, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is pretty much going to do it for us for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. We wanted to do something quite different and something much more relaxed. And talking sports can be very passionate. It can be a pretty divisive issue. But we just wanted to do something a little bit different. I am actually, along with Ryan, profoundly disappointed that no one called. I should be used to that. But it still bothers me. I wish you folks would call us a little bit more. But we're going to keep pushing for it. We're going to keep asking you to call. We're always going to have a phone line for you. We're not giving up on that. This is your program. It really, really is. I know I make the joke about NPR every week, and you're probably sick of hearing it, but it really is. It means everything to me that you call and comment and text and tweet or email or whatever it is that you wish to do to get a hold of the program, because this is your program. I do not want to lecture to you. I'm not smarter than you are. I'm not better than you are. I have different areas of expertise. I have different specialities, but I am not here to lecture to you. And I really want you to be part of this program. It's why we do it. I do not do this program for my own ego. I have an ego, clearly, but I do not do it for my own ego. I do it as an interactive. We if you go to our home group Facebook page, That other side of information, you will see right there where it says that it is interactive progressive talk. Interactive, that means an interchange, an exchange, you and us. We here and you all there. So we hope that we will continue to grow that. We want you to call and be part of the program. With all that said, it was a very relaxed. I did it. Yay. Yay. I did it. I do it every week. I hit the microphone with my headset. I love when I do that. You probably sounds really fun to you on your end too. All the professional equipment I have in this studio, and yet I still do silly things like whack the microphone with my headset. I don't understand why I continue to do that every week, but I do. I guess it just means we're human, huh? We are all human after all, with our own frailties. Let me tell you what is coming up on the program. We will not be with you next week. We will be off for Labor Day. Please, for whatever my small words may be worth to you, remember what Labor Day is. It is a celebration and remembrance of the fight, growth, expansion, accomplishments of the American labor movement. I know that these things have become quite cliche, and they shouldn't be, but they have become quite cliche. Do you like your weekends? Thank labor. You like health benefits? Thank labor. You like a minimum wage? Thank labor. It's except that it's true. It's all true. So I beg you to please remember labor and the history of labor and the importance of the labor movement in this country. And especially for those of you who have been convinced or told that the labor movement does nothing to benefit you, I beg you to watch all the documentaries that will air this week about and in and around the labor movement. There's a reason why Nixon and Reagan especially wanted to destroy unions. Remember that private sector, not government, private sector, union participation rate or union percentage when Reagan came to power was about 37.5%. It is now about 5.6%. There's a reason why the richest, the biggest corporations and Republicans want to destroy unions, because they held up the American middle class. They developed the American middle class. And look what has happened to wages. Look what's happened to wealth disparity. Look what's happened to the 40, well, even with the AC, I think it's still 25 million Americans with no health insurance. These are labor issues. So please, as Labor Day comes on us, remember what labor is and for, what it's done, and what it can do again. Please keep that in mind. So we will not be with you for Labor Day, but coming, we have guests booked all the way through to October 3rd. If you see snow, I have guests booked all the way through October 3rd. That's generally what happens. You'll see when crazy things happen. Well, you know, come on, you've heard the old saying, well, if you see snow, you'll know this happened. I wouldn't be shocked if it snowed. I've had guests booked ahead of time for such a long time. It's almost like I know what I'm doing over here. So we're off for Labor Day. We will return on September 12th, Sunday, September 12th, with representatives from the Progressive Democrats of America. That is who is currently scheduled to be on our program when we return to you on September 12th. So we are off next week. We hope you have a wonderful and a very, very safe holiday weekend next weekend. For all of the folks across the United States whose children might be returning to school this week, which I believe every district in the Commonwealth is returning this week if they have not already. We wish you a happy return to school, a safe return to school, a low stress return to school. I haven't seen perhaps a more inane and genuinely real scientific word here, stupid debate in this country than about masks and vaccines. I do it every week and I will continue to do it until enough of the country has done so. If you have not gotten a vaccine, please get it. The news of the third booster shot, if I could get it, I'd get it tonight. I would have done it live on the air. You can't vaccinate me fast enough because I don't want to get sick. It's the same reason we get vaccinated against polio and measles, because it's science, and because it works, and because it's fucking common sense. If you have not been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. Most medical authorities will tell you, medical experts will tell you, even if you have been, it's a real good idea to start masking up again. Please do so. They're uncomfortable. I can't breathe. Yeah, they are. They also will help you from dying. How is this a complicated topic? Until September 12, when we return to you, please keep in mind you can find all of our recorded episodes at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thatothersideofinformation. You can always tweet me at that Kennedy Talk, twitter.com/thatothersideofinformation, at that Kennedy Talk. You can find us on Instagram, That Other Side of Information. You can become a Patreon subscriber, That Other Side of Information. I am on TikTok, That Other Side of Information. The TikToks are not terribly exciting, but we are there. And it will tell you when we are, if you do a like or a follow, I forget which one TikTok does. I think it's a follow. You will know when I post. And if you know when I post, then you will know when the show is. And what am I missing? You can email us, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. If you have a business, yes, I'm sniffling because it must be an allergy night. I don't know. I'm sniffling right into the microphone for you. It must sound brilliant. I'm sure you're very excited about it. If you have a business or a service or a product where you are your business, whatever it might be, and you literally want to advertise that to a global audience in this very connected digital marketplace, to a global audience, please email us. We would welcome you here. Don't worry about a political program, being an advertiser on a political program, because guess what? Whether people agree with me or not, they will still buy your product. Same reason GM, Chrysler, Amazon, Walmart, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, they all advertise on Fox and MSNBC because you're all consumers. I'm a consumer. Don't worry about advertising on a political program. People will buy your product. They're not going to think you agree with me just because you advertise here. You are welcome here. We want you here. You can literally reach a global audience. I believe that covers it for tonight. I think we have said about all that we can say for you, or with you and to you. So take that. We will return on September 12th. We are off next week. I beg you all a safe return to school, a safe and happy Labor Day weekend, the unofficial end of summer, probably not the end of summer weather, but the unofficial end of summer. If any of you have caught any of the program and are in the path of Hurricane Ida, I beg you, please stay safe. We are thinking about you. Take care of yourselves. And for everyone else around the globe, Have conversations with each other. Let's not yell and scream. Help your neighbor. Let's rebuild the ties that bind. We are a community. We are a society. I wish you all the best. For associate technical producer Lynn Dare, for technical producer George Dare, to DJ Lex and DJ Earl at hot101.net, from Marquise, Whitney, Sarge, and Taekwondo TCP, for the woman who started all this. You can blame her for me. April Riddick, for Kristen, I'm Jeff Kennedy. We will miss you for a week. We look forward to seeing you again live on September 12th. Until then, I beg you, please take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.